continue our budget meetings, and we have Justice Court here this morning, so welcome, Judge Kraus, Judge Shurkin, and our clerk, so. What do we got?
So, well, I mean, it's for you guys to speak, but we haven't changed anything other than the salary line, which is equal to the contractual increases, so their trends are about on schedule. They've spent to date a little bit less in the part-time help. They brought in a college intern over the summer, and as there's some money left in the budget line, I think they're gonna come back once they confirm that she's available and ask the college student if she can come back over the holidays. There is money here, so I just asked her to prepare a memo to the board if she confirms that she's available so that we can rehire her, but there is money for that. So we've continued that money for next year. We've continued the same amount in the conferences and travel line, so basically every line.
Well, there's a little bump in the conferences because there's a possibility that clerks will have mandated training the way the judges do.
It's not a possibility,
It's
definite, 2019.
Right. So Di mentioned that to me yesterday, but I wasn't aware of that as the budget was created, so that's not reflected in here. So if that's something that you would like to request, I just need to know what an amount would be and if the board would be interested in adding that back into the budget, because it's not included in here right now.
We had 1,000 and I think the proposal is to raise it to 1,500. What's been happening is Kathy and Di have been alternating going to one conference and now they're gonna both have to go to, I guess, at least one, maybe two.
We have a new administrative judge, Judge Davidson, and she's mandating a minimum of like 20 hours training going forward in 2019 and from there. So we will have to attend. Maybe not together, I mean, that's not what we're planning on doing, but it may come down to that, or at some point, the February conference and the September conference,
Right.
so. Are we being recorded, is this gonna
We
be
are.
on TV?
Yeah.
Why? Wanna walk back anything?
Smile.
I haven't said anything wrong.
We might comb our hair though.
We can go into executive session to something.
If there's something
I
contractual,
wanted to mention something.
Okay, we can talk about that after in executive session. Alright,
That's now.
alright, was there anything else?
Yeah, that's the only unusual thing.
So I think that's it.
So, I mean, they don't have a lot of budget lines, so I mean, if you have any other questions, not a lot of variables in their
I know
budget.
last year we kind of discussed an extra prosecutor at one point, just do it, no need for anything like that.
I don't think so.
Collections are good, going well.
The tickets are down a little bit since Chad retired.
We're
Also-
busy, I mean, it's very busy.
How's the diversion course coming? Distract a lot of people taking the course?
Yeah, I'm finding that they are. Are you?
I
Many of them are completing. Seems like it's been more.
It's a little more work for us. A flyer goes out, a court date is set, they don't go to the course, we have to adjourn the case. Then they take the course,
times.
I couldn't get to that course, adjourn it
4
again.
times.
Can you suspend a
It's a
license
lot
for
of
failure
work for us.
to,
No,
you can't.
not to go to the course. That's just something, if they take the course, then they got,
So then the option is just not to
Can we
withdraw.
just not adjourn the
The option is
case,
to
just
withdraw
say
the
you
offer.
have one
Yeah,
shot, or two, I mean, they should know right away if they can't make it, and
Right.
then say, sorry, you missed the course.
We had a woman come to the window yesterday that had 3 court dates already, and she did not make the August class.
So
We
maybe
do it as a
withdraw-
courtesy
maybe
to
they
them.
But
withdraw
at least
the
she
offer.
does it without the class.
Maybe have the
The
court.
chief wants them to
well,
go.
I mean, first of
so.
all, it's, it really isn't up to us, it's
the
a
prosecutors.
prosecutorial decision that I'll offer you a reduced plea if you attend the course.
Alright, well then we just,
Right. We can prove
By
it,
your
but I
court
can't-
hearing date.
Yeah, well, yeah,
yeah,
but it's, in other words, sometimes the officers will say, okay, you're gonna attend the course, so.
Well, I guess in theory, the court could not accept the offer, not approve of it.
Yeah, we could.
Right.
That's right.
Alright, so
We'll talk to we should talk to the
Yeah.
prosecutors
we're
about
gonna
it.
make a motion to go into executive.
They don't handle it, it's the police department, because most of the tickets are Newcastle
Oh, that's
police.
right, so we'll
So it's
talk
not
to the
really
PD.
so much the prosecutors.
The letter goes out from the prosecutor, but it's all Newcastle.
Yes, but we can change the wording of the letter that goes out from the prosecutor to indicate that you will be
One-
granted a single adjournment in order to schedule the course. If the course is not taken, then you will be, that avenue will
Even
be
for
for
cause.
That's off the
Yeah.
table.
That's it.
You can prosecute it
Yeah.
as charged, I mean, that's,
That's
you know,
right.
the
Always an
prosecutor has
option.
a right to do that.
Yeah.
Or they have to go to court and ask for an adjournment, I guess, but it wouldn't be.
No,
No,
we
this
don't-
becomes a
we're saying
nightmare
it
for them,
becomes an
perceived,
issue.
yeah,
Okay,
We want people to take this seriously, so.
or the fine increases or something.
one second. Oh, I see.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So you may have a second opportunity, but now there's the fine, whatever the
And
fine
then
is,
whatever
it can go up.
whatever the fine is, it goes up.
Yeah, I mean,
if
you can
miss
go
it.
above what the
Right.
law states the
Right.
fine is, but certainly that can be figured into the.
Right, we can put that.
Okay,
But, you know, the fine range only goes up to $250 for
What,
first-
what do they get as the offer when they,
They get 147 usually.
Yeah, with the surcharge, $147 to $93 surcharge, and usually it's an 1110A, it's a disobeying a traffic.
so they go roughly $50, $53, is it 200 or 250?
I mean, what they're
The
more
max is
used,
250
So they can go up roughly.
for the first offense.
yeah.
So go
You
up
know,
roughly
Jeremy, it's
$100.
usually not the dollars, it's the points. that
Right, but I'm
figure.
saying the incentive to them if they miss it,
Right,
you know,
yeah,
have to
yeah.
come out of the pocket extra $100.
okay. So we'll have a motion to go into executive session to discuss
I'm
personnel.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
A real speakerphone and everything,
Okay.
as opposed to passing around our cell phones. This is better.
Well, I appreciate that.
Hey Josh, how's
Okay.
the convention? Is it a convention or
It's a conference.
a conference?
Where are you?
I am in Binghamton right now.
Oh, going there this weekend, my alma mater. You sound a little hungover. Sorry.
You're recording, just ignore him, ignore him.
Sorry, just,
Oh my gosh.
how could I not say that?
Oh, look at that. Ivy, that's at least creative, Rob.
That's very good.
Nothing to do with it.
You're breaking up, it's a little hard to hear you.
Good.
That's creative
Perfect
too.
answer, I don't know if it was intentional. Alright, let's go, let's begin.
Alright, what do you wanna talk to the board about?
Well, I'd like to speak a little bit about my 2019 budget, if I can.
Please.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you guys have had an opportunity to review it, and I know there's a couple areas that you're probably interested in hearing more about, one being the data processing increase
Yes,
year over year.
let's
We got a
start
little
there.
preview, we got a little preview of it when we spoke with
Christina.
Christina.
Yeah, so Josh, I kinda led into that when Christina was here last night, and I briefed the board on SCA as an entire company and how basically all the different modules are intended to be updated and kind of what those costs would look like. So you can talk specifically about the assessment piece in reference to the budget.
Okay, so the software that we're currently using is roughly 25 years old, and they are really the only competition that the state of New York has as far as assessment administration software. It's a great program. While the support has been lacking in years past, up until probably this past tax collection. The software really is great. It affords the opportunity for us to run, different kinds of reports for Jill and Rob and for you guys and the fire districts and the school districts. And so this injection of money is looking to upgrade that system and make it into a cloud-based platform, which will hopefully improve the support due to the fact that, I think there's 34 municipalities currently that are utilizing this software, and each one is slightly different, and each municipality houses that. So by putting it into the cloud, it will enable them to make one tweak and cut their cost and give us a better product.
Well, that's where everything's going anyway, right? Cloud.
Well, it is, and Josh, also, correct me if I'm wrong, but this upgrade and then the one in 2020 that they're intending to do on the Municity side will help integrate the information that comes in from the building department into your files, so that will kind of automate that process. Is that correct?
Correct. So we currently receive, so when someone applies for a building permit, we are able to download that file into our past software from Unicity. And so when we get upgraded, it'll be necessary for the Unicity to be upgraded so that they continue to sync. And that enables each department to, it sort of cuts everyone's work down by half, because as the building department enters each permit, and you'd have to speak with Tom or Sabrina, I want to say that we usually review somewhere between 1,200 and 1,500 permits a year, and this will allow that to be, as it is now, as a data dump, so that we can integrate it into our software, and then of course that produces 95% of our inspections annually.
What when you say by half in terms of real time, what does that really mean? What is that, an hour, 2 hours, half hour?
So if someone were to, if we were to go back, say, 15 years, and someone were to apply for a building permit, the building department, someone would enter that into their software, and then we would get a hard copy of that, and then we would then have to enter that into our software so that we would be able to track it.
Josh, you're saying 15 years ago, or is that the current process now too?
Correct.
Okay, sorry.
And it would just enable that to continue.
Right, so what would happen is that if we weren't able to do this and we aren't able to accurately correlate what happens in the buildings department in the assessor's office, it means that those, the improvements that are made to buildings aren't captured by our assessor, so it means that our assessed value for the town isn't.
Well, I approve, I'm just
should they-
curious,
no.
in terms of timing, is it gonna free up, are we talking freeing up?
No, it just will allow us
Just
to be
more
more
efficient?
accurate and to, make sure that we are capturing everything that's actually taking place.
And then
Less
what are
things fall between,
what are the
you know.
collateral or future costs that we just should anticipate down the road? You said something, 2020, you said there's another,
Yeah, that's
Upgrade.
gonna be related to the building department, so when they upgrade that, and that's probably gonna be similar, I would anticipate, this is 20,000 is our share of this, so basically what they did is they presented a proposal to us, and there's currently, I think, 33 clients with this customer. He needed 20 to get on board with him to commit these funds and move forward, and he's got a timeline of when he'll have everything prepared for us. So, and I'm not sure I mentioned yesterday, I said we're kind of between a rock and a hard place. They have said they're not, so there's an older version and they're upgrading to a newer version. They're gonna stop supporting the old version. So if we say no, we have to jump to the other people. There's no option to stay where we are. There's not, okay, we'll just live with the older technology, we can't.
I'm all for it, I'm just
Yeah.
curious, we can know what the costs are and
Yes.
if there's a cost 2 years out and 10 years out, but if it's the same thing, it needs to be
Correct,
done.
and we don't know that right now. I think that Sabrina's been talking with them, and I think he's also doing this in steps. So he's doing the assessment stuff right now. When he gets that module done, then he will move on. The man that's
Understood.
in charge of SCA, and then he'll move on to the Unicity piece, I believe.
Judge Krause is trying to get your attention.
Rob, is 20,000,
The other part of that-
hang on one second, Josh,
Okay.
is 20,000 increase the cost among all departments, or is that?
No,
that's
that's.
what's the total cost?
That we'd have to put together. There was an increase that Christina showed you in,
The receivers.
in the receiver's
office, I'm just curious what
which
the,
there-
said it was like 5,000, I think?
Yeah, but
It
there's.
was a little bit more than that. It was 48 and
Well,
50.
it went from 95 to 53. So, six, 52. 95 to 53.
15.3. Oh, I
Yeah.
thought you said 53. Yeah, so
Like
it's about
$5,000.
a $6,000 increase in
Close enough.
receiver. But that's much smaller than what the tax assessor and what the building will
So
be.
this 29, is this what how many years is this contribution for?
Josh, that'll be paid out in 19, and that won't be a recurring cost, right?
Correct. So as the contract was, we received a draft contract mid last week
Yep.
that
Right.
I sent over to Glenn Sullivan, and he had made some comments, and I'm going to sort of integrate that with. We created a subcommittee with 3 other towns so that we can put our heads together on this and make sure that everything that we need is in the contract, and then we'll submit that back to Nick, and he'll be able to polish it up for us. So one of the issues is that there is no state option for us to convert into the new state software until at least 2023.
Right.
And we're being told that the current software past, we'll call it 1.0, they're not going to support that past 2019. So we're in a little bit of a gap, and those that integrate in now are going to be receiving about a 50% discount as sort of this buy-in, as well as future maintenance costs. So next year, I want to tell you that the $20,000 is going to be spread over, and that's sort of being hammered out right now, between 12 and 18 months. After that, the maintenance costs will go down to about $11,000 a year.
Why do the maintenance costs stay so high? So if the purpose of this upgrade is to move the software to software as a service, so it's in the cloud, well, and they don't have to do sort of individual upgrades for each town that has it moving forward, why does it stay so high?
Yeah, it really sort of, flies in the face of what they're selling us.
Because there's nobody else
So that's a good question.
And I missed,
That's
I'm sorry, I
exactly the
briefly
right
stepped
answer.
out, I'm sorry, Josh, you said the maintenance cost is $11,000 a year, and what is it now?
Well, there's a 29,104.
It's currently, well, it's 10,539.
539. So
So it's the same, it's actually
it's
going,
literally the same.
It's going up a little bit.
Going up.
that's interesting, all right.
Yeah. But this
No,
doesn't
there's no
present.
savings.
Yeah. Is there a way for us to lean on SCA a little bit, saying, you literally are building this, we are supplying the capital for you to be able to create a new program, and we have no proprietary interest in it, and yet our maintenance costs are still going to be the same going forward. Is there any way that maybe we can, squeeze them a little bit for a reduction on that? Because this is clearly just.
Well, could we collectively as a bunch of municipalities?
Well, we are,
the
that's what-
33 municipalities,
So
we're
he's got
proposing
it,
that
just
to them,
us, right?
Yeah, so we met with a group actually in this
Here.
room that I think 20 or more municipalities were represented. And I think Josh is now working with a smaller group with 3 of trying to work through that contract and I guess get the best deal for all of us that are in on the ground floor here, so.
I mean, but it seems to me that the bottom line is it has to be done, from what you're saying, it has to be done, and it's gonna make it easier, even if it doesn't save money, it's just disappointing that it's not saving money.
Yeah, but that
But we're
seems.
gonna, but I understand, but you gotta at least make the push. It
Sure.
sounds like
Yeah.
we're stuck.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna have to happen, it's just a matter of us trying to get the best out of it.
We were hoping that at least it wouldn't be fully proprietary when they were done, since we were actually paying for the capital creation of this new software program, and that, of course, what.
I'm sure you can get 33 municipalities to sign on to this, especially if any of them have a mayor, I mean, it would be absolutely. It's one of my favorite, kinda like Jill Shapiro, it's my version of it.
I agree, actually.
Alright, so that's, you'll let us know, Josh, about that, you'll obviously follow up with us.
Yeah, but I think it's something that we wanna talk to Nick about, and I think we really wanna press.
Okay.
I
We
mean,
will
I would,
talk to Nick.
yeah, cause I have to tell you, like, the alternative would be that it's not proprietary.
Well, I can send an email to my little group of.
Right, so I one of the stipulations that we had come up with in our smaller group was that we would have the source code put into some type of an escrow, and at each payment phase, we would ask that source code to be updated should SCA, either move to Costa Rica or
Fail to
decide
deliver.
they're going to be out of business. So we would all be able to, take that source code and finish the development of the software.
Right, but that was only
Right.
that was only our guarantee, like our performance bond, to make
Right.
sure that we would have a finished product. But my point is that at the end of the day, when they finish this product, paying the programmer with the money that municipalities are providing for them, they're basically not putting any equity in, where they're billing us for all of their costs. We still have no stake, proprietary stake in the end result. And that to me seems unfair, fundamentally, unfair, since we're paying for it. We're not even partnering with them, we're just paying for their bill, for them to then administer it. So I just, while we're talking to them, and we're not saying that we're not giving them the money to develop it, we are, cause we need it, but something has to give, so either that maintenance fee has to go down significantly, and or there has to be, we need to have a share in this. It has to be a true partnership.
Alright, so we'll talk to Nick.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Okay.
Josh.
Okay, you're welcome.
Is there anything else we need to, let's see.
That was the biggie.
Josh, do you just maybe wanna touch on, you and I spoke a couple weeks ago just regarding, so to remind the board, we typically put $100,000 in a budget line for property tax refunds, which would be tax certs. I'll show you up on the graph here where that's been in certain years, and in most years it's more than enough. In those odd years, you see 2015, which was the SG. If this chart showed you back to 2013, we had a similar cert for Riverwoods, Josh? Not Riverwoods.
Correct.
Was it
No,
Riverwoods? It was, so you see 16, 17.
Chestnut Oaks, was it also? No, Riverwoods.
Yeah, I think.
Pheasant
So-
Run, perhaps?
Say again?
Was it Pheasant Run?
Maybe, that one was in the past
Yeah,
as well,
Pheasant
the
Run.
condos that did us.
But that's when we get a large one, but I wanted Josh to just offer his opinion on whether or not there would be anything that sizable coming up next year, just so that we can be comfortable with the number that's in there.
Yeah, I think that so right now the Supreme Court in the cert part is really pushing to clear out their calendars. So, as I look at what we have pending and the number of years issued, it doesn't appear as though that we would be exceeding that number. But for whatever reason, if they happen to add these cases to the calendars, I mean, it's conceivable that it could get that high. I don't foresee it, but unless we're prepared to go out and bond it or find it from another spot, I would be comfortable leaving that at the 100,000 and just giving it back to the general fund should we not need it.
Alright, I trust your judgment.
He knows what's up.
By the way, this new conference for calling things, great.
Thank you.
So modern.
Yeah, I said 20th century, we're finally there.
All right, so I will continue to follow up as the contract evolves
Great,
with the
thank
town
you.
board, and obviously we're going to be looking to get the best deal possible for us, and having facilitated that meeting, I think that we're in good favor, we're in a better position, to make that happen. So, but we'll let you know.
Who are the other two municipalities right now? Are there the two municipalities and three you're working with?
So we're working with North Castle, Scarsdale, Mount Pleasant, and who's the other one?
Someone
Oh,
on the-
Ramapo. Scott Shadow.
Ramapo. Ramapo is one of their bigger clients, right, Josh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're north of 30,000 parcels, so they have a little bit more clout. And Scott is a great guy. He's part of the executive board for our association, and he's got a lot of connections, and he's dialed right into the management at PASS, and so he's been a great asset in helping to facilitate conference calls and getting this moving as rapidly as it has been.
So by comparison, we're 6,700 parcels.
Gotcha.
Ramapo's upward of 30,
Right.
so.
Alright, so it's
Not that it's less important.
Okay, that's not true.
Not even a little bit,
Not
but.
even, but just Josh, let me know if he becomes available, if he's looking for a position, just let us know. Enjoy,
you're still laughing?
enjoy Binghamton.
That's sunny Binghamton, alright,
Thanks, thank you very much, Josh.
alright, bye Josh, take
Okay,
care.
my pleasure. Take care. Thank you.
Bye.
Take care, bye-bye. Have fun.
Bye.
Budget shouldn't be laughing and fun.
I was trying to get the name of the
Especially
chicken
at
wing
30,
place.
you know, it's 8:45 in the morning.
Sorry.
Wednesday nights, and I couldn't find it. Wednesday nights used to have
Oh.
10-cent wings.
Those days are long gone, when
I
is
know.
10-cent wings, I mean, you can't do
Just
anything.
saying, I was trying to give him the name of the place, I couldn't get it.
That's all the food voucher, we're gonna have to give, we're just gonna have to find that 10-cent
That was
I used to, after high school football, I used to go for 10-cent wings, you can't get a
It was
5-cent
like ground round Monday nights, all you could eat.
Ground round.
Ground
You could throw the popcorn and peanut shells on the
Exactly.
floor.
Yeah, I remember that.
Did you ever go to Ground Round? You didn't know Ground Round?
No, I'm from California, they don't have ground round.
Oh, they have Carl Juniors, right? And some other
Alright, so what
what's
is
it
it,
called, Junior
Jerry?
Jack in the Box?
I didn't know if you could throw the popcorn on the floor technically, I mean, the
There's no
peanut shells.
reason.
Right, exactly, the peanut shells is different. Right, why throw the
They're cleaning
popcorn?
one thing up.
I mean, why not just throw the wings also?
There was Ponderosa was all you can eat, I think.
Yep.
Or Sizzlers. Sizzler.
Oh.
Did you know any of those?
yeah.
Ponderosa and Sizzler.
I never went to eat.
No, I didn't either. But I just remember them. But Denny's used to be a big.
Build a breakfast.
I just read that IHOP. Is it IHOP or Howard Johnson's doesn't even exist anymore.
No, I don't think we'll just.
No?
No, I think there was one. Maybe there's one, or there was one as of recently. But
Hey Jerry.
It's not IHOP, they're.
IHOP exists.
Hi, Jerry.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
I think IHOP changed their name or something.
Nope, still high out there, one around the corner from me, on 125th Street.
They changed it to International House of Breakfast or something.
No, I thought it was a joke.
It was a,
It
yeah.
was a joke.
It was burgers, it was, they
Yeah, it
changed it to
wasn't-
high,
yeah, joke.
National Burgers for like,
Hi Julia, how are
Good
you?
morning, folks.
Good morning.
how's the cupola building?
You guys coming in serious. I like it. Tied up, the better
How's
dressed
the
than
desk,
us.
did it make it in one piece?
Thank you.
Yay.
It's in use.
All right.
Okay, she's got no excuses now. Straightforward, here we come.
We start with,
We still live. Maybe we
Good morning.
should- That's fine.
good
I
morning,
would like
good
to
morning.
start with a little introduction of what people do in our department. Then we'll start with the solid waste budget, followed by highway budget, followed by the water budget, DPW administration, and then followed by capital projects. Okay? So basically, everyone's met Mike Sicali. He's our refuse and recycling coordinator, and he runs the day-to-day operations of the refuse and recycling center, including the administration of the solid waste contract. He'll be talking to you more about the solid waste contract during the solid waste section of the budget. Then we have Bart Carey. He runs the day-to-day operations of highway when he supervises Tom Costello and Charlie Bergstrom, the foreman. And I run the day-to-day operations of water with John Migliaccio as the foreman, and then Bart and I cover for each other. And the backbone of the whole operation really is Julia Golden. Julia is our office manager in the department. She keeps track of all the financial work in the department. She applies for all of the CHIPS funding, state aid funding for the department, the local roads inventory. She takes care of tracking all the costs for snowstorms, all of the costs for paving. Details a lot of spreadsheet work so we can do an analysis of how effective our spending is on various disasters. And she's basically the glue that holds the office together.
And she
I know.
responds to tons of emails.
Yeah, she does, she basically has a good working relationship with state DOT, her counterpart in the Katona office. And if we get a complaint from a resident through either Rob or one of the town board members about a problem on a state highway, Julie immediately jumps on it and forwards the email to Laura and her counterpart up at Katona DOT. And that's how we get stuff done.
Are they fairly responsive to you? Or is the state generally just slow and inefficient, or because their hands are tied, they're busy, they're...
Lauren usually tries to help out as much as she can.
Different Lauren.
Right. This Lauren too, but then Julie also responds to the resident, I forward it to DPW, I mean, well, either DPW to local road or I forward it to the state or whatever, so, and the residents always appreciate it.
It's confusing for most people, what's state and
Yes.
what's...
Yeah, they
Yes.
don't, they just want to.
State, county, and town, it's hard for them to determine why we aren't fixing a a down tree on Route 117. And Julie very patiently explains to people that the numbered roads are in general state roads. So let's start off with Mike doing a solid waste budget presentation. He'll go through some of the highlights of what he's got in his budget, and then he'll take questions. Board members.
Alrighty, maybe. As Jerry said, I'm the foreman of the recycling department, and refuse department. Two primary parts of my job, the biggest parts of my budget would be our compost and yard waste operation, and as well as the sanitation contract.
So Mike, just to interrupt it, I think we can go through the budget, but when we get to the point where we talk about the contractual services, I think we want to go into executive session.
Yes.
So maybe don't go into the specific details of that line, we can go through the budget and then we'll get to that contractual
Right,
services.
because we've got some follow-up for the board, some answers to some questions that were asked last
our last
executive
executive
session,
session.
yeah. Okay, great, thank you.
So if you look down my list, revenue, the biggest things that are gonna pop out of you.
What
are-
page number are you on, Mike?
I'm on page 106.
106?
In the
Refuse.
refuse
Yes.
tab of the budget.
The two things that'll probably jump out of you are the yard waste and the compost and mulch sales. The DEC has completely changed the restrictions that we have to follow, the guidelines of how much we're allowed to handle our acre and a half lot. And so we decided we have to stop accepting as much as we used to. We are currently at capacity right now, and that's why you'll see the compost and mulch sales number doesn't get hit as hard because we right now we're at full capacity. So in this spring, we'll have enough to make as much as we always have. But what's hurting us is we're not allowed to accept as much as we used to. So that's why you see the yard waste number going down. And it also hurts our mulch sales because in the past, landscapes would bring stuff in and then take mulch out. Because they're not able to bring stuff to us, they are no longer they're not coming, dropping anything off, so they're not coming to just pick up mulch. Wherever they're dropping their stuff off, they're buying mulch. Another reason we decided to kind of slow down the program is to conserve our machine. It's getting old, it's 14 years old, it's got 6,500 hours on it. Still got life left in it, but we can't continue to use it the way we were in the past.
What's life and what's the cost to replace or repair?
To replace that machine, and we probably wouldn't replace it with the same size, is around $900,000.
$750,000.
And what's the life left on it?
The motor, we're having some work done on the motor right now. It's got 6,500 hours. The tech from Caterpillar said we should probably get 10,000 out of it,
What does that mean?
hours wise. So
Yeah, I know, but
we have
how long-
3,500 hours. The way we're going, it would maybe be 3 years. But the way we've started to slow down, maybe we'll get 4, 5 more out of it
How long have we owned this for?
since 2004.
Is there a market for that for parts and?
It's not worth much. We've looked, to buy that machine used, you're looking at maybe 70,000, 80,000. It's probably worth more in scrap metal than anything else. It's got life left in it, but it's
So Rob, and that's
tired.
obviously a notation we have to know that 3 to 5 years out.
Yeah, I think that's in the
I think it's
capital
in the-
budget, is it not?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is.
I think there's, yeah, composting operation, so right now we have $175,000 listed in there, and that's just kind of a placeholder because we have some different options. I think you said we're not gonna buy a machine of that size.
Yes. We've
Anymore, we've reduced those operations, as they said, we don't take outside contractor stuff anymore. If you look up on the chart, you see the revenue that we used to make, and you see how drastically it's declined in the last several years, so as a result, each year we're kind of ratcheting that down. And it's also been a result of the residents in that area too, right?
Yeah,
Because
Chestnut Oaks especially, we've gotten a steady stream of complaints when we use the machine, the noise.
it's loud.
Is really problematic for them. So, we were limiting our hours of operations from like 10 to 2 so that we weren't disturbing people first thing in the morning. We weren't going into the afternoon, but that and the backup alarms during the salt operations, during storms, are the two biggest complaints we get down there. There's nothing I can do about the backup alarms, I will not disconnect them. So that's just a motion violation, so, you know, what we can on the mulcher we do.
Anything further, Mike?
Roughly everything is very similar to what it was last year, there's not much change, and then if you look to the next page, our expenses is the next thing that's gonna jump out of here. Everything else is pretty much standard and like it was in the past. But if you look at,
Page 109.
yes, 109. Live, it's 110.
Oh. The expenses did begin in 109.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm looking at that, and that looks like that's a printer error, he reversed page 109 to 110.
Oh,
Alright, so then we're looking at 110, not 109. Looking page, yeah, 110.
So what line are you at, Mike?
I'm on page 110,
Okay.
and if you look at the transfer site charges,
Yep.
there's an increase there, as well as the contractual services. And that is in reference to the changes that we spoke about last time.
Right, so we'll talk about that in executive session.
Yeah, yeah.
So if there's any other areas that you wanna touch on, any other parts of the budget?
Those four items are my biggest changes. Everything else is relatively similar to what was last year. I don't think there's anything that's jumps out at anybody. Should you have any questions?
What I'll point out, it's on page 110, it's almost all the way towards the bottom, special projects. We've had that number of 80,000 in there for the last several years. That was intended to fund the containers for the downtown project.
Refuse containers, garbage cans.
So,
$80,000?
and Bart has been doing some research with Adam Brodsky on that, and was
We're
talking
gonna
about.
buy them this year, so we're gonna take a look at the budget.
Sure, the original plan identified 38 litter receptacles, it didn't include anything for recycling. The litter receptacles are about $1,000 to $1,100 each. Recycling ones are upwards of $1,300 or $1,400, just because they're sometimes, depending on the option we select, they're divided and they have different openings and they have some signage on them, so they're more expensive. Recycling ones.
Do you think it's a good idea to be picking up recycling in the downtown? I mean,
Well, that's
those
something we have to look at.
recycling trash cans, most
Yeah.
people throw trash in them, it's gonna be a
Well,
disaster.
yeah.
But what about if you have the ones that have the little opening, just
Yeah.
Just for bottles.
Even
bottles,
so.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So those would probably be the best that I would select, because in the past, we had some for newspaper as well, and those have been.
They get soiled, it's
Right,
not
exactly,
worth it,
they've
yeah.
been contaminated. And then, we also have, we wanna support recycling, and the Sustainability Advisory Board would like to see a recycling container next to every garbage can. So we have to, kind of balance out the needs of all the stakeholders.
But I think the bottle ones are good, because
Sort of.
Yeah,
someone
no
feels
one's gonna
offensive
shove
to
their
throw a plastic
garbage
bottle in a garbage
Right.
at this point in our.
Yeah, the problem with the round ones though, unfortunately, is, Dunkin' Donuts is no longer there, but we still have Starbucks, everybody would get the cool coffee
Yeah.
drinks and those plastic with the straw,
Yep,
put it right in the hole. Those
Well, we can
shouldn't-
put
they
something-
those shouldn't be in there.
No,
And,
Yeah, with the
there's
sign
no
that says
coffee,
just
no
cups.
coffee,
like
no
that.
cups, so.
Yeah.
like this?
Exactly. So they put those in
There's no
there.
more recycling thing on
Right,
it.
and in the past, when the recycling markets were great, it wasn't an issue, but now.
And we can ask Starbucks maybe to be on board and put their no recycling sign up if they're willing to do so.
For
So people know, yeah.
I mean, they have recycling in Starbucks, say.
I mean, it's,
Landfill.
this is more of a question
Yeah.
for Rob, I just don't understand, just so I can understand. The health insurance, when it says actual, I assume again, in 17 it was 96,000, we budgeted 145. What, am I misunderstanding, misreading this, we budget significantly more than we actually come out of pocket? So in 18, it's 86, 85?
Yeah, so that's possible. So what happens when I do the employee benefits, it's difficult to project each employee. So I take I prorate it, so I take, here's the entire budget, here's the entire health insurance cost, refuse is X percentage of that, and that's what I attribute in the budget. And it may work out differently when we actually pay the bill based on the employees. So
Right, so-
that may be something we can tweak.
Well, it doesn't matter if you tweak it, ultimately,
Yeah.
you go back to the general fund, because it's
Yeah.
not being used.
Yeah, yeah.
Fine.
Any, I guess I shouldn't say any, but the health insurance, dental, vision, disability, those are all prorated numbers. Workers' compensation is actually what the bill is because they spell out, on the workers' compensation bill, it tells you how much payroll is attributable and what the rate is for each department or each type of job, so that's easier to pick out. And the state retirement is also a portion based on the budget.
And pardon my probably ignorant question, if it's water fund and only water fund can be used for water fund.
Correct.
Can water fund be used for water fund employee, like people in the water department?
Yes.
So those costs come out of,
Right, so those costs come out of the water budget, so the employees that are attributed to
Not in
that
the general
budget.
fund.
Correct.
Gotcha.
So in fact, even Patty that works in my office, her primary job is water billing. Water billing is done residentially on a quarterly basis, commercially on a monthly basis, but there's always, it rotates, there's 3 different sections, so she's billing one residential section and one commercial section every month, so it's a large part of her job. We actually charge her salary back to the water fund
Gotcha.
because
Super. Gotcha.
it can be attributed to that.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Mike for solid waste?
So maybe we'll go into executive session and we'll pick up a conversation.
Mike, how's the
from last time.
composting going? Just to, it's not so much budget related, but
It's kind of stagnant, it hasn't picked up. As I discussed last time, I expected after the summer to start picking up. It seems like we've kind of topped off at 8 toters, and we're selling more kits, so I would have thought that number was gonna go up, and it's just kind of, my guess would be that the people that started doing, there's a lot of new faces, but I'm not seeing some of the people I originally started seeing when they first started, so I'm imagining that people kind of got tired of it maybe.
I ran over mine accidentally, so
It was there more out.
Intentionally or?
No, not intentionally, not intentionally.
We've topped off at 8. And we're really going there. I thought after the summer we'd pick up and it hasn't. So as of right now, we sold 210 kits and we're stuck at 8 toters a week. We're filling up. The people that are doing it love it. But again, I think people are starting to fall out. The people that started doing it first.
well, it's not so convenient to get to recycle something. Then your hours on Saturday and Sunday are a bit of a problem. It's like
Yeah, I
full
was
of,
thinking
but
if
it's,
there's an easier drop off, like a more convenient drop off, that maybe we could get an
I
increase.
still like the take it or leave it shop on
Unless
Saturdays,
someone's
but I
gonna
understand you
babysit
need
it.
somebody to babysit.
You get the
it,
babysit's a
yeah.
problem, otherwise people are gonna contaminate it.
We actually put a camera at the recycling center on it only because the first couple months people were putting insulation, we found all kinds of things in there. So even watching
Is
it,
there any way to do any type of enforcement, or in terms of
I-
penalties and fines? Or it's just gonna be too difficult to really track the people unless you confront them
it's,
right then and
you know,
there? Which puts you in an uncomfortable,
yes,
whatever.
it's it's generally a lot of times it's a misunderstanding. They see a garbage container, they don't read that says food compost and they put it in there. So I mean, it's a mistake, to find someone on that. I mean, I think people are sometimes deliberate and don't care where it is, but I think some people just come there, they see a couple toters and they figure, I'll put stuff in here. And they don't really truly understand what the program is for. So I guess we could find people, but I think we'd have a hard time backing that up, just because they're gonna say they didn't know.
Wanna go into executive session, talk about some contractual stuff?
Sure. I move to go into executive session.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Julia?
We're gonna spend so much time.
You can open it, right? We're at executive. We on?
Yeah.
Welcome back, everybody.
And your kids here, if you whenever.
Our fans at home, welcome.
Bring it in.
So I'd like to have Bart Carey, the Assistant Commissioner, present the highway budget. And he'll highlight the various changes. And one of the changes that affects us in the highway budget is weather. And last night we blew through thousands of dollars of overtime.
Yeah.
On a non-event, just a quirky little storm.
It's a freak storm, maybe a tornado, maybe a tornado.
Yeah, but it's just, it's not like it was
You
like.
can't budget this.
No.
That's the whole point.
It was so quick.
So Bart,
Rob, did you wanna talk about the revenue side of the highway before I get into the
I
expenses?
can, I mentioned it last night in the fund balance discussion, but just that there are very few sources of revenue for the highway department. They primarily come from state aid and county aid with either the snow plowing reimbursements or the CHIPS funding. Couple other sources, I mean, there's a little bit of interest income, but the highway department doesn't have a huge fund balance, so, you know, the interest income isn't like it is in the general fund or the water fund, so, you know, that's what limits us there, is that there aren't a lot of revenue sources for us to be able to rely on, so, the tax levy is really what funds the highway department.
So on the expenses, you'll see the overtime,
what page is that? What page
this
number?
is page 85. The overtime budget request has increased 100% from $40,000 to $80,000. And that is basically an appropriate request when you look at our past spending history, because for 2016 and 17, we were 72,000, 79,000. And that's what our reality has become. And the overtime that's charged to this line, this isn't winter, there's a separate part of the budget for that. This overtime is primarily for trees down incidents like last night, and also for road paving when we're doing more paving, so that's outside of the regular work hours. So those are the primary charges to this line, are for all of the tree and storms.
Rotating happens outside of regular
No,
work
part of
hours?
it does.
Right, it extends past the normal workday, so there is overtime involved. The normal work hours are 7 to 3. When we're doing road paving, a lot of times we're here starting at 5:30 or 6 in the morning, here till 7 or 8 o'clock at night sometimes.
What you have to do with the early starts, you have to prep the roads immediately before the pavers come through. In other words, you have to use blowers to blow any kind of debris off the road so that the paver can have a solid binder, solid cement coating down to the road bed. So our guys come in, a dozen guys come in and start cleaning the roads off thoroughly right before paving operations. So it's an early start and a late finish,
So the series of March storms that we had,
and that's out of here.
this is this line,
Yes.
Yes.
and that's why it's 90,000.
And the problem was, it was left at 40,000 for a while in the hopes that we'd be back at those levels, but it just hasn't happened. It's staying up at a higher level, and it's all required.
Yeah, and I mentioned that last night in the talk of the fund balance discussion, that we're reacting to realities now, that the weather is, we had several years, how we built the fund balance over a period of years was that we were under budget in all of these overtime lines and snow removal and that type of stuff. And we're just, in the last 2 or 3 years, we're not doing that anymore. We've been exceeding, so we have to react to that. We can't hope that we're gonna hit the number anymore, because we're not.
We'll probably close that overtime line out at about 95 to 98,000. We probably used 4,000 or 5,000 last night alone.
Oh, yeah. And I have to tell you, it's my hat's off to Jerry. We reacted really well last night and very quickly. We had a liaison here, by 7 o'clock at night. We had crews present and at the ready for, Con Ed when there were situations that trees were down, but not in wires, that we were able to get some roads opened. But we were right on top of this thing. And the double-edged sword is, because we were the epicenter, we actually had all of Con Ed's attention, so, the downside is we were the epicenter. But we're unfortunately, we're getting really good at knowing exactly what to do and how to react to these things.
I think we're actually seeing, regardless of climate change deniers, I think we're actually seeing the impacts now of climate change, what it boils down to. It's really, there's just no question, the intensity of rainstorms that we're experiencing, where people would quote there's a 500-year rainstorm, they're now occurring once a year.
Oh, are you kidding?
It's just nuts. Well, 500-year rainstorm, 100-year rainstorms occurring every month. It's just the intensity and the amount of rainfall we're getting, I've never seen it before. I've lived here worked here 35 years. I've never seen it.
Driveway's gonna wash away.
Yeah, it's, yours isn't good.
So going down a little bit further on that page, the request for vehicles has gone down. That's probably one of the only lines that's gone down. And that's, we just need one pickup truck next year. The vehicles for highway department are in pretty good condition.
So, you know, we're on a schedule, a replacement schedule.
Yes.
Yes.
And so are we spacing this out so that we don't get slammed one year and have a decrease, because that's sort of hard for us to anticipate. So do we expect that this is a?
Operationally, we buy very small vehicles out of this.
Okay, the other ones are capital.
Others are all capital.
And
Got it.
who is, where, is there a vehicle graduating to another department?
I'm sorry, what?
Is there a vehicle being transferred to another department, or are you just adding on to your stable vehicles?
Usually by the time they go through the highway department, you just wanna auction them off.
That's
They're-
surplus.
They're heavily used. They're on our fleet system between 10 and 12 years, and you can't pass them on down.
But either way, either one, so it's disappearing, there's one that's being taken
Oh,
away.
Right, it's
no,
it's
we're
it's a
not
direct
adding-
direct replacement.
Direct
Yeah, some of them
replacements.
we're getting 14 and 15 years out of these pickup trucks, thankfully.
And Bart, similar, you heard from Lieutenant Carroll last night about their replacement schedule. Bart is the one that prepares the
Highway.
vehicle replacement schedule
Highway
for
and water.
highway and the rest of DPW.
And the pickup trucks and the smaller vehicles aren't as big of a problem as the plow truck now is. It's almost $250,000. So those
And we just bought, in the last couple of years, how many, 3 or 4 of those?
3.
Bart, I have a capital budget question. So, we see on page, it's not this on page, but it's in the capital budget section. First of all, I don't know if it's an error, it says wood chipper, 100,000, and it says bonding, or part of the future was 75,000, should that be 100 and 100?
That was what was original, I think the original request, it should be 75 and 75, I think, right? Because we realized when the actual cost was less than what we,
Right, 75 is a realistic number.
And is it realistic that we should be expecting this 575,000 collected in 19? If those tanks have to go then?
Oh, the tanks have to go, we're.
Yeah, I believe the funds are in
the
place for the
fuel
tanks.
tanks and, yeah, actually, so I see that as a typo on my part. The fuel tanks have been bonded for
Yeah, I
already.
was gonna say,
We
this
have
is
the
it.
funds, that
We've
was
already-
included.
So that's X it off.
Yes,
I will include it in the capital project, but change the projected source of funding to the 2018 bond.
And that's already built into your.
It's already built into the debt service, the debt payments, yep.
And we are doing it this
We
year.
have started that project.
Yes.
Okay. And these other numbers that we're looking at, this is about highway, the Chapel Hamlet infrastructure, that's,
Those are just taken straight from the,
I understand, but who discusses all these other things? Is that with DPW and the highway and, with sidewalk improvements, Mickle Dam?
you know, the Minkle Dam is really, Sabrina, I'm not sure there's
Okay.
there's an update on that one at the
well,
moment.
that's where, so the $50,000 that we're spending for the hydrology study, so we can finally get a determination as to what it is that we can do with the dam.
Right, I
And
don't
then
have to
we'll
wait for
make
that with
a
these
decision.
guys, I just want to
Yeah,
share.
no,
it's all
yeah.
covered.
Okay, so a little bit further down, you'll see the road maintenance materials has gone up 20%, and that's because the price for asphalt has gone up. Last year we paid about $90 a ton for laid in place, and this year it was about $103 or $4, $105 a ton.
And that's for pothole repairing, right?
No.
No?
Well, it's for both, for street paving and for pothole repairing.
And that's tied to the price of gasoline and oil.
It's tied to the price of oil.
Petroleum.
And the,
So that's the highway, the road portion of the budget. If you want, now I could go in, also under this is our central garage and then our snow plowing, unless there's questions on this part of it first.
But, you know, when we talk about Upper Minkle, if I can just go out of order for a little bit. If you go to page 90,
it's a different budget.
Yeah, but no, I just wanna,
No.
just because we had
Just for
mentioned
the
it.
inspections.
Just so the board is aware, so in addition to the costs that we will be paying to either remove or reconstruct this Minkle Dam, because the Minkle Dam is a high hazard dam, that $5,400 is an annual inspection for it. In addition, we are precluded from certain insurance companies actually bidding on our general liability for the town. They won't, like for example, Travelers won't touch us because we have a high hazard dam. So it's just one of those continuing costs for a dam if we have one, that, you know, we don't talk about so much, we just talk about, oh, you know, well, what's the cost to reconstruct versus removal? But there are these continuing costs that go through it. Certainly the inspection, but then again, you know, our insurance rates too, in addition, so just keep it back in. I'm sorry. Glad
So in the 5130 lines,
Page 88.
page 88 and 89, everything is pretty much consistent with this year. You'll see the rental expenses increased 50%. That's a small item. Notice 2,000. That's going up to 3,000. It's not like a 50,000. That's going up to 75,000. And that rental expense is for tanks for like acetylene and other gases that the shop uses for welding and cutting.
Are there any questions on the mechanic shop, the highway maintenance? We can then go to the snow removal budget and trees.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Let's go to
yeah.
5140, page
5140
90.
first, yeah.
And that has brush and tree work is line 5140, 0490, 0060. And that there is a significant request for an increase to $175,000 for brush and tree work. And that, again, is just because that's the reality that we've had for the past
What is brush and tree?
few years. This is, we have we go out for bid for a contract for an outside company to do tree removals, pruning, and that contract is with Olmsted Tree Care. So that's for all trees within the town right-of-way roads, for town roads. And could be parks also, but primarily roads.
We have a certified arborist on staff, Steve Coleman, and he goes out and gets a tree complaint from somebody, a resident, a town board member, or whatever. He goes out and evaluates the tree to determine whether it should be safety pruned or taken down. And every time he makes that decision, it's another $3,000 to $5,000 for each tree.
And these aren't trees that are kind
right
of
of way.
trees, these aren't like trees that are near wires, these are just trees that are in our town that have nothing to do with Con Edison.
Well, they may be near the wires, but if they're in the town right of way, they're not falling into the wires, Con Edison's not responsible for cutting it. They will do clear cutting around wires, but then our residents sometimes get very sensitive about that. I guess it's a polite way to put it.
So kinda, I think they prune back like 10 feet from the wires or whatever their number is. So these are trees that are like, they could be on the other side of the road or they're nowhere near the wires, but they're within the town right of way.
So we're asking for an increase for next year for that, but we've only spent $31,000 on that.
Yeah,
Actually, no.
don't be misled. So Olmsted's very slow in billing. So they know, they know how much.
Here I thought I'd found us.
No, so Steve puts the requests in and there's much more out there than that.
The number of purchase orders totaling well over $100,000.
Yeah, I don't even think they finished billing 17 until we barely got it in before the auditors last year.
Yeah,
in
I'm laughing, their actual
Jerry,
17 billion
when is it the
76.
homeowner's responsibility, if it's,
complain the
forget if
tree's
it's a
been
park,
tagged.
but someone's personal property, is it, once it's in the right of way of the town, it's our responsibility?
I'm sorry,
The tree, if it's in the right of way, but it's on a homeowner's property,
it can't be on
when,
a, it won't be
Yeah,
on a
it's one or
homeowner's
the other.
property. The right of
Talking about
way
the
is
branch that overhangs?
is defined as what was dedicated right of way to the town. This is the rule of thumb that's typical, but not specific based on surveys. You take a road bed, you measure from one edge of the pavement to the other edge of the pavement, say it's 22 feet. You mark a little 11-foot mark in the center of the road bed. Then you measure 25 feet from the center of the road bed to the edge,
each way.
each way, and that's the approximate right of way. Now, Depends if the builder built the road in the middle of the right of way or not.
Okay.
Then to get a definition of exactly where the property line is, we contact the building department, or we go on Municity or what it PAS or whatever, Alchemy, and we get a property survey. And we actually take tape measures out in the field. We'll do it, highway guys will do it, Bart will do it, or I'll do it, or Steve Coleman will do it. And we measure from the front of somebody's house to the edge of their property survey and determine where the property line is. If the tree's outside their property line, it's in our right of way. If the tree's behind the property line, it's the homeowners.
So if you have a small plot of land, in theory, you could almost completely be in the right of way, relatively speaking, if
Yeah.
the front of your property.
Yes.
Yes.
And the town would then, this legal question, but if that's accurate, the town could say, we need to trim these because they're dangerous trees, and they could come in and do so. And it would be, and the property owner would have no objection, and,
Well, they may have an objection.
well, I rephrase that,
They may have an objection, but
Standing.
if,
That's right.
if it's a safety issue and our certified arborist says a tree has to come down, and we've been put on notice that by one of the other residents of the street or somebody driving by that it's a dangerous tree, we have no choice, we have to take it down. And we do a diplomatic explanation to the homeowner, you know, said the tree has to come down. We really don't have push. The real funny part about it is that if there's an old tree and the homeowner doesn't want to spend money on it, he says, it's my tree, it's my tree, it's my tree. Then all of a sudden he realizes it's going to be very expensive to take that tree down. Now all of a sudden that tree is the
It's our
town's
tree.
tree. The ownership of the tree switches like that. It's just amazing. I've seen it dozens of times in the last 30 years.
We're next.
Shall we move on to snow removal?
We're right. Where's the good news?
There is no good news. This is the reality of
This
town
past
government.
hour has been like, oh. It's all bad.
So page 91 are salt, liquid de-icing, and maintenance and repair lines are up between 37.5% and 29.42%. And that's because we've been getting more snowstorms than we typically have gotten in the past and at a consistent level.
You're not gonna get any this year though, have you?
That would be,
No.
that would be the positive note you're looking for, yes.
If you look
You
at
could use
the
them out of the winter.
chart on there, and this doesn't include the personnel, this one, but that shows the contractual, and in particular, the salt. Look at where that went in 2015 and, you know, so 16 was, if the chart showed, you know, 11, 12, and 13, it would be similar to 16, it would probably even be lower than that. So then we had that at, you know,
Awful,
15
oh my God.
huge, and then 17, and it's just, you look at 18, what we've already spent, it's trending up.
Why did sand go down? Did we have a
So-
stockpile of it, is that why?
No, and that was a you know, decision on our side, not on Jerry's side, they requested the $10,000. I look back, we haven't spent it for years. My recommendation is if they think that they're going to need that for next year, that since it's still in the budget for 18, that purchase that at the end of 18, and that would most likely carry you through 19. I didn't want to continue a number that just wasn't being spent, so they said they use it sporadically.
Ice storms will use it. Typically what happens with an ice storm, and the temperature's really low, we'll soak the sand with a liquid magnesium acetate or magnesium chloride or calcium chloride, and we'll use that to de-ice and provide traction on an ice storm. Because ice storm, salt really doesn't work well in an ice storm, it doesn't provide the traction that sand does. So it's another tool in the toolkit.
Where's the brine, is it liquid de-icing also?
That's the brine.
Yes.
Refresh my recollection, were people using our brining capabilities?
We were using Pleasant
Oh,
Hills
we were
until
using
created-
someone else's.
Yeah, until we
Mount
created our
Pleasant,
own.
Mount Pleasant.
Mount Pleasant.
Mount Pleasant, I'm sorry.
Now, is there any municipalities would wanna come to us for our brine for?
I don't think so. Everybody around here now has their own brining operation. The problem is.
The equipment wasn't that
The
expensive.
equipment was very cheap, and the other part about it is that the transport time was just not cost effective. If you were to send a truck down to Mount Pleasant Highway Garage, down south of the shopping center on what road is that? Columbus Avenue.
Oh, right.
It would take an hour out of your day. You'd have to be waiting in line with their trucks to get loaded up with brine, and then you have to come back here, so it's just not cost effective to go some of their operation. Village of Pleasantville just installed their brining operation before we could talk to them about using us, because that would be the closest match, Pleasantville and us.
Alright, so there's no revenue, okay?
Yeah.
Should have a sign up, stay away from my brine.
Are there any other questions on the highway?
Have we considered doing any sort of brine storage at the Millwood water treatment plant for the west and south town?
Well, first we could get the,
I know this will show, but
yeah,
to be able to just put a tank there even, just to store it.
I don't know, we'll have to look at it.
It would be something to consider. Usually we try and do pre-treatment, so before the storms, and those
Right.
trucks are all coming out of Prince Lane usually, but we could put a small tank there.
Yeah, I was just thinking, just to refill it, just so you wouldn't have to come over with that.
Julie, do you want to talk about the 1490 budget, Public Works Administration? What's covered under this? I'm springing this on her. She's saying, no, thank you.
Which page?
It's page 40, 167,
It's got its own tab.
It's A1490.
I'm sorry, what
Where are we looking?
what are we looking at?
So Public Works Administration has its own tab under the general fund. It's all the way to the right, underneath the comptroller tab.
It's page 40 of the budget book. 160.
Page 40.
Got it.
That's it. Anyway, I shouldn't have sprung it on her, I'm sorry.
Nice try, Chair.
Yes.
Nice call, Chair.
So anyway, I'll take the heat. This is basically, percentages of salaries are spread out into three funding districts. There's water, refuse, and public works
I'm
administration.
sorry, I don't see page 40.
Up here.
All the
page
way,
40
all the way to
of
the right on the
167.
tabs,
It's
underneath the comptroller tab.
It's not the comptroller.
No, it's not the
in the
comptroller.
Public
It's
Works
not the controller tab,
Administration.
underneath the controller tab.
Oh,
It's a
I'm
tab
sorry,
in
I thought-
itself.
God, I misunderstand what you're saying,
Yeah, me
okay.
too, I did the same thing.
Okay, sorry.
There's really no significant changes in that. That's about it.
Okay. So,
We can jump onto the buildings and grounds. Bart, you wanna handle that one?
see, Julie, you could have said that. You only had to say it. There's no changes.
So let's move on.
Next time, I won't hit it.
It was a trick question.
Right.
Yeah.
That was the problem.
Nothing to say.
She had nothing to say, and you
Page 41.
She had something to say.
This is
41?
page 41,
I'm
yes.
calling foul.
There's one major change there, Rob. It's maintenance of grounds, is that,
For the grass cutting
What
contract?
page, yeah,
we're not.
And that's part of what we discussed yesterday, right?
yes.
I think that's already been addressed, there's only one major change
What
there.
line is that for? Oh, yeah,
A1620,
yeah,
48 acres of grounds.
yeah. Oh, no, that's the Wallace. So what that was is we actually, when we created the Wallace Auditorium and we put them under 1621, when we consulted with the auditor, it wasn't really the correct spot. So that's now in the recreation budget, which we talked about last night, 7155. So
We're just moving it, it's not.
these, yeah, it's not a change. That money was transferred, the budgetary funds for this year were transferred to those other lines. It's still gonna show up because there were numbers there, so the computer still picks it up even though there's nothing there. But we did, where is the building, where is the grounds? Was that 1620?
Yeah, I see on the next page, 1621, it's all negatives.
And the one that the train station maintenance, that's down 60%. And that's because we completed all the wood restoration and the gutters on the train station.
Are you sure, Rob? Cause here's all the auditorium maintenance. Are you sure they
Right.
just wanna see the grass cuttings?
And Jerry, you've spoken with Ike about the idea of
That
the-
maintenance and grounds.
dedicating-
Grass cutting, yeah.
Okay, that's.
dedicating
Oh, I'm sorry,
employees
I was on the.
who may come and take over the grass cutting in the winter to becoming dedicated to snow removal downtown possibly?
To a certain extent, yes, we already, we've done an analysis of the cost of downtown snow removal. We currently use, what was the spreadsheet, you have that, Andy?
But that wouldn't be for,
That's not,
well, it might be
They
for
use part-time
2019,
already for like
right?
the sidewalks, public sidewalks,
where's that?
and then the town sidewalks.
8-hour.
You know, we typically have a crew that does the sidewalks from Grafflin School down to Owens Garage. They do sidewalks out in front here along Recreation Field, they do sidewalks from the Triangle up across the Quaker Road all the way out to Marcourt, and then you do sidewalks in Millwood. There are typically 8 people devoted to that, laborers, right now. A combination of parks, water, and highway. And that doesn't include taking care of any new sidewalks from the downtown infrastructure project at all.
Does that include the train station or not?
It's the train station
And the
also,
train
and the
station,
train station. And they have their hands full. If you have a minor storm, and it's after hours, it takes that 8-man crew, 8-person crew, a minimum of 8 hours to address that operation. Typically, they're on a 16-hour cycle. If a normal storm, they're out there clearing. More snow comes, they go back and repeat the stuff. So, a typical 8-hour shift cycle on overtime for that crew is about $4,000. Okay, just for an 8-hour crew. And we don't typically get only an 8-hour window of sidewalk work. It's typically 16, sometimes 20 hours. This does not include any new work for sidewalks in the Hamlin Infrastructure Project. So the question about maintaining the new infrastructure sidewalks, it's gonna be a very costly operation. We did not put any equipment in this year's budget to do that. We didn't put extra manpower in their budget, with the exception of having a laborer in water and a laborer in parks. That's only two additional people. If we're gonna have a fast response and keep the sidewalks in the downtown area really clear, we probably need 5 additional people on top of the 2 we're asking for.
On top of the 2 you would be sharing with Ike,
Correct. On top of the 2 we're sharing with, well, we're sharing 1 with Ike,
but 2
Okay,
additional,
one with water.
one
discuss,
with water, and 1 with Ike. Well, Ike is Perks.
right, but we've discussed with taking in-house, doing the grass cutting, 1 full-time and 2
Right, so Jerry's
and 2
aware of that
part-time.
one person.
Right,
and
but the
then-
part-timers he wouldn't get, the part-timers were solely dedicated to the grass cutting.
Right.
But the theory, when we discuss those 2 part-timers in theory, whether the same or new ones, we take 2 and then they'd be dealing with the snow removal as well?
I don't know.
No, they were
what
just
those-
seasonal, they were just guys we would hire for 6 months to cut the grass, they weren't. In that proposal that Ike gave us, and again, I mentioned that last night, so Ike gave us a proposal completely independent of anything for Jerry. When Jill and I sat and looked at it, we said, well, okay, but what would that guy do? We're hiring, okay, the seasonal guys go away. What would the full-time guy do when he was done cutting grass? Well, we said, well, okay, it's opposite seasons, so we would let Jerry have
So
him.
you need 4 more, you really, realistically need 4 more for a total of 5?
No, we're looking, 2 more, we're looking at 5 on top of the 2 more.
5 more, okay.
5 on top of the 2 more, we're looking for 7 more. Because you just, it's a tremendous amount of effort, intensive effort, because there's just no place to put the snow. So in effect, besides clearing the sidewalks, at some point we have to actually clear the snow furrow from the road plowing and have to remove it from the hamlet. It's a very intensive operation that we don't do currently.
And what new equipment would you need?
We probably need snow blowers that can blow into a dump truck. We'd have to really research it. We're probably talking
It could be a couple $100,000.
$100,000 in equipment.
In equipment, and then in terms of man or woman power a year, what are you
Person
talking
power,
about?
yes. We're talking about probably $600,000 a year more in salaries, and that's,
But it couldn't be a
$600,000
seasonal employee?
you can't find people that only will work seasonally, you can't find people. The
We have
people,
to pay prevailing wage.
So then that becomes someone who's on the books for healthcare benefits.
Yes.
So full-time, yes, so add 35 to 40% for fringe benefits.
well, I was
depending-
including the 600,000 was.
Oh, you were including
yes,
that?
'cause I-
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Right, because
100
you're gonna hire a laborer in the mid-40s, although once they get through their 5 steps, they're up into the
60s.
60s.
That's 100,000 a year.
And we
Right.
haven't even put on books yet a statute in terms of when we need everything cleaned and done, so then we could be around the clock sometimes.
Are you amenable towards us looking to contract this service as opposed to taking it on in-house?
I'd love to have contracted out. But I think you're gonna, we went through this before, we used to contract parts of it out. And in the past, we were able to contract with firms that were not paying the prevailing wage. And then the labor department says, no, you gotta pay your people prevailing wage.
I think you're gonna find the same thing that you did with the grass contract, where these people come in and underbid because,
And it's concerned, right, this is a safety issue, it's not grass which is just ugly, if you don't have it done right, someone's gonna get hurt or damaged.
And then the prevailing wage is they can't hire undocumented people. That's part of the problem.
So the first year, you're talking roughly $800,000 between new equipment and people power.
Yes, and that's an ongoing cost. And
Well,
that's-
the equipment's not ongoing.
No, well, the equipment would be, every 5 years you have to replace the 200,000 probably. It's not a cheap situation.
And we can't somehow encourage merchants to hire a particular company?
We can, the merchants can,
Because
No
then
one-
you don't need prevailing
It's so hard to make
wage
them
if-
answerable to us and make sure it's done timely and
Well, no, I know, but I'm just
properly.
trying to think
Have they done any
outside the box.
substances
Yeah,
that
we have
corrode
certain
our
right-
brand new
Well,
sidewalks?
right, but if we had a specific person we were encouraging everyone to hire, we'd make sure they were using what we wanted them to use. I don't, it's not enforceable,
But I
but
certainly trust your
people
experience,
may
but
be
you
happy with
can't get
that.
someone seasonal, that no one wants to schlep shovels and snow blowers, I guess.
No, they really don't.
we
I
actually
can't
have a
blame
hard time
them.
getting
Who
summer help and we
who
have
wants to
actually,
do that?
you know, college kids around
We
and we don't pay for them.
we beg for summer help, literally beg. And we have trouble getting summer help.
Who's wants to get up at 5 in the morning or 2 in the morning and shovel?
Well, we need to make money.
Yeah, but you know, like the Board of Elections has the same issue, they thought that they were gonna have all these college kids that were gonna take and man the election booths, you know, for $225
What
a
is
day and
the
they.
salary start out
not
for any one of these people?
The laborers in the salary schedule,
I think Rob said it's in the mid-40s.
like
But
46.
we've got step increases, so
Can you
within
provide us
5
the
years, it's in the
breakout of all that if you, did you?
Yeah, we can work on it for you and have.
Because that's a real expense that we have to
By the end of next week,
expect.
yeah, by the end of next week, you like it?
As soon as you can, I mean, obviously it's not happening this winter because we don't need it this winter, but next winter, it's not that far off.
And we could get some storms come November, December 19. Hoping the climate change keeps us warmer, we get less of a window, but we're getting more storms.
That's right, we had those bad Octobers a couple of years ago. Oh yeah, if you can get that, that would be great,
Yes, we'll get it for you.
thank you.
Anything further on buildings and grounds?
Nope.
And just a clarification, so the 1620-0480, that maintenance and repair, I'm sorry, the one underneath it, the maintenance of grounds, the one that went from $20,000 down to 5, that is the grass cutting contract being eliminated, and it's on the following page.
What remains then?
Right, what remains, we still have
Yeah.
some expenses that we take care of.
Contractually.
Exteriors of buildings,
Like pruning of trees, stuff like that.
yeah, that we can, that are still there. And then the Wallace things are on the next page, where they've been zeroed out. Okay?
So all fields are done?
I was just clarifying the grass
oh,
cutting and the,
yes,
yeah.
correct, yeah.
And the remaining 5 is just pruning and things like that.
Let me look at that, was that pest control and there was
Oh,
some,
pest control, things like that.
there were some various charges in there.
Yep.
It wasn't all just at rest.
Okay.
And unfortunately, if you look in years past, we hadn't budgeted that correctly. If you look, we spent 29 and then 25, so the 20 really wasn't represented.
Wasn't accurate
It
anyway.
was really, the grass cut was probably more 20 to 25 and the other ancillary stuff, so.
thanks for the great news, I'm so glad you guys showed up.
Yeah.
Anything else you wanna?
Okay.
Yeah, Nick is sort of on a tight time schedule,
Okay.
we were supposed to start him at 10ish, so.
Okay.
Well, let's go through water
Oh,
real quick. There's no significant changes in water that I'm aware of. We are, Julia, as part of her homework project for an internship for Pace's Public Works Master's degree, is going to be working with Maggie, or an intern at DPW, and putting out the RFP for contractual services for the water treatment plant. So she gets credit for working on it at home, at night, and homework, and then reviewing what Maggie does during the day. Because the contract expires for Suez at the end of this year.
Right.
And we're gonna go out for proposals. We've got all the documents we used 10 years ago. We'll probably get 3 private companies coming in. But at the same time, Julie will put together a cost-benefit analysis of what would happen if we took it in-house, took it away from private. There are pros and cons to that, and she'll address that in her presentation.
let me just ask you, because I hadn't realized, Joe and I were talking about this a couple weeks ago, and I hadn't realized up until that point the contract was up this year. And I know 10 years ago when we talked about it, the staff at the water treatment plant was interested in becoming a town employee. Is that still the case 10 years later?
I think so.
I mean, is there still a benefit for them to enter the state pension system and all of
I
those
think
things?
so. There's a benefit for the younger staff members.
Right.
There's probably even a benefit for the older ones are not all that old. You know, so they get 10 years in the retirement system. The benefit for the town is that now any new hires in the retirement system would be step 6,
Yep.
where they have to contribute to their pension.
For life.
For life, they have to contribute to health insurance, so, and there's no profit margin when the town operates the system. The other benefit for the town, and I don't wanna go steal her thunder with the analysis, is that you get employees that will stay with you. They won't jump ship, and because we become an incubator at that treatment plant for all of the water superintendents around Westchester County. They
We like
get
the
their,
farm team.
they get their license, they go from Mount Kisco, then they go to Ossining, they go to Peekskill, they go to Yorktown. So we've trained all the water superintendents in northern Westchester.
Yeah, John F is up in
I
Rochester.
mean, as we said just before, when we discuss it, you know, we should make sure that people have an incentive or need to stay with us if we're gonna train them.
Yeah, well, it's not training with paid education, it's OJT in this
Yeah.
case.
So it's not, okay, it's
On-the-job
just
training.
experience, okay.
Because when you put in a certain number of years' service at a highly complicated treatment plant, you get the top rated license from the state health department. And you can take that license and go anywhere in New York State, you can go to Connecticut, Colorado, all the states around here, and become a plant manager. So we've created plant managers for all over the Northeast,
Literally defined.
literally. Yeah. We've grown them. So there's not much change in water, and it's really basically the same. At some point, we need to examine raising the water rate slightly, like a couple dollars per thousand cubic feet, probably 2020 or 2021. It's just a fact of life, because the New York City in its infinite wisdom is charging us hundreds of dollars per million gallons more every year. They don't deal with 2% tax caps. Their average rate increase for raw water to buy from the city has been 15% per year for the last dozen years.
It seems like we may have to raise it even before then. I mean, I'm looking at, again, the capital budget, which
Sure.
we don't have to discuss in great detail today, maybe we can get a better discussion, but just for water alone, we have some big ticket items in the next couple of years. You know, since I've been on the board, we've discussed the Alpine tank, we can discuss that later. You have it in 2022, but you have 900,000 for boiler and water main replacement, you have 3 million, although this is changing in hopefully some capacity. That's in front of Conifer, right? The MTA track, that's a 3 million?
Yeah, when do you
So
think we're
that's
getting that paperwork from them?
We got a draft document last night at 6 o'clock. I have not had a chance to review it.
Okay, great.
And I'll be presenting it to you with our comments shortly. The boilers that is out of the operating fund at the treatment plant, that's not gonna be a capital project.
Yeah.
I mean, either way, you're talking,
Yeah.
you're talking, three, worst case scenario, if that holds true, 9+ million plus, you're talking well north of $10 million by 2022.
Yes,
I mean, so, that's some real money, and then we just discussed 600,000 potentially for maintaining downtown, plus 200,000 for equipment. So, I think we need to be smart, and people have to understand, even if we're going to raise, I'd rather start it incrementally now, that's just my suggestion, as long as we're within our tax cap,
So
keeping the
that
tax cap,
won't,
because
so
I'm frightened
the
that
benefit
some
of that is it's
huge-
outside of the tax cap, so when you're charging, when you're increasing the rates for the use of water, it's outside of the tax cap, it doesn't affect the levy at all,
Right, but
so
so
that's how we can do that.
600,000 would it be for maintaining downtown?
Oh, it would
So-
absolutely, yeah,
But
but
that's not out of water.
no.
No, I understand that, but I'm just saying in general, there's a lot of dollars that we're gonna be finding and moving, whether it's out of our tax cap, coming to the tax cap, general fund or water fund, we have a lot of dollars that are gonna be coming out.
Yes.
And our revenues are dropping, not that refuse was a huge revenue maker for us, but there's expenses and costs. We have equipment we're gonna have to buy down the road. So I'm just fearful,
you make an excellent point, Jeremy.
we need to start now, and people have to understand, it's not about looking like we're keeping everything for the sake of an election low. I think we have to be smart and say, we may have to start raising incrementally, as long as we're doing it responsibly. These are big numbers down the road.
And what's our-
35 years ago, I wish
The
we were
water
on the
is
town
fine.
board because we had trouble getting to raise rates to build the filter plants. It was really painful.
Yeah, I'd like to see numbers and maybe we can get a little more detail, but I would rather consider starting now.
Well, so how much of that
Just
is
like
going
we did
towards-
with the pavement for
No,
the,
you make a good point.
for the parking lot.
It's an
We
excellent
said
point.
people, hey, this is coming, we're gonna fix this, it's gonna be an expense, you'll be happy when it's done, but it's gonna cost you some money now. So I think that's a
Right, so the-
conversation we
so
should
the-
have.
43,000, we're taking almost a
But
million.
Jerry, are these water capital improvements, I mean, are they realistic in terms of timing?
Pretty much,
The insurance, they came in, or someone came in and investigated the Alpine tank,
The
said,
Alpine
yeah.
tank, we've got our Suez staff checking it on a monthly basis, they go through and check the leaks, check the inside of the tank from the top. Paul Steyer, the assistant plant manager of Suez Millwood Treatment Plant, has contacted a Conradi Consultant Services to give us a proposal to have an ROV go in there. Once every 10 years or so, we send an ROV, it's a robotic camera-driven little fish like, and they videotape the inside of the tank for tank condition. We'll have that done this winter.
And Nick, I'm sorry, since you're here to ask this question, if something does go foul with and it does start to leak, and we relied on this representation by this outside company, there would be liability potentially on their part, or is it sort of, we're not guaranteeing that this is
I'd
gonna-
have to see the type of the guarantee, and then also you're saying that in that instance,
Inspection report, they give it to you and then they put
Right.
disclaimers on, so.
Yeah,
you're
so,
on the-
so, and is that the outside window 2022, or is that, we feel comfortable, we can,
Well,
by
see,
2022?
the tank is currently 86 years old. It has a design life of between 80 and 100 years. So the sweet spot is basically 90 years old. Okay, that's the sweet spot. It could last 100 years. See, the good thing about the WPA and Roosevelt's administration, they built stuff to last. They built the Bell School, they built the Alpine tank, they built our town water system. And for the most part, it's lasted very well. So, there's no guarantees. We do have in place a replacement tank at Hudson Hills Golf Course. So if there's a catastrophic failure of this tank, it's not gonna fail catastrophically. It's
Right.
hit by a tree or lightning bolt, they've been hit by lightning already. It's not gonna have a catastrophic failure where it's gonna wipe out somebody's house. It's gonna start leaking, then we just shut the valves, and we use the other tanks in the system.
Alright, well, I know Nick needs to go, but I think we should discuss about starting raising water funds and cost sooner rather than later with all of these real numbers that are coming down the road. Why wait? Real dollars.
I'd like to just see what
We should study it a little bit.
I mean, I think one thing that I would like, and Hal asked me multiple times last night, but when I see a project, for example, the Alpine tank and the numbers I was given was 1.5 million to 3 million. It's a huge variance.
Yes.
I
And
need
that's
stuff to
today's
be,
dollars.
well, I understand that,
Right.
but I need stuff to be more fine-tuned before we can do a real cost benefit analysis, you look at the forest main under the tracks, well, again, 2 years ago, that cost was 800,000 and we funded it to that tune. Now it's possibly 3 million, but probably not, so.
Well, it could be close to 3.
Yeah, so we need, so the bottom line, we need to get these numbers ASAP, I realize
Yeah.
everyone's working, I don't mean to sound that in a rude way, but we need to be prepared, and I'd rather us start chipping away and saving now than getting hit with sticker shock with all of these numbers down the road.
Particularly in a scenario where we have to be transferring more of the fund balances to cover that.
Yeah, there's some real expenses the next half a dozen years and less. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
I'm glad we brought some good news to you.
What was that? What was that? I must have missed it.
You snooze, you lose in this place.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
We gave the town board to the water, we all work part-time there.
Jerry, thank the crews for their work last night.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
And we still have, we have crews out today still, we're
I
still,
know.
roads closed and still working.
Thank you guys very much.
Just council.
Thank you.
and then we're having
Take care.
Have a good day, thank you.
You too, so long.
Yeah, but
Yeah, there's not a quarter to 11.
typically we have more discussion, there's not really any variables right now.
I asked, Bart to bring the maps and the survey.
Give me a nice
Okay, you got everything? Okay.
Lots of
We'll see. I'm going to Steve now.
Not really.
Yeah.
Grab's still cooked for
Does anybody actually come in here to deliver good news?
This is budget.
No.
Sometimes we get like cakes and stuff, that's as good as we get.
Dave Rambo used to
Dave
bring
Randall
apple
used to bake
pies,
for the
but
board. Do you know that? I used to have department heads that came in and baked. That was before my time.
I never got a Dave Rambo apple pie. I never got any
Neither
of
did
it.
I. It was before my time. You want to
So we're talking about the legal budget, and I'm leaving at quarter to 11 to go
Yeah,
to
let's
a
go.
site visit.
Where'd everybody go? We lost everybody.
We've changed
I'm
nothing
here
except
for
the
ya.
litigation line, and I'm sure they'll ask what Article
We're not ready for you yet, you can sit there, but we're doing, one more budget, that we're doing here.
70,000 is adequate to cover that. and
Where are we on the budget?
Last
We're
one,
about done.
legal. Oh no, we got one more after that, we got,
Yeah. I mean, there aren't a heck of a lot of decisions.
Sorry.
we got lead counsel and the preliminary, we don't have many decisions, that'd be
No,
quick.
there's almost
Things
nothing.
have been stable and
Well, in years past, we've had maybe some personnel decisions that were questioned, vehicle purchases and those types of things that there was a lot of discretion on, and the department heads really haven't presented anything outside. They haven't really disputed the changes that Jill and I made to their budgets, other than the police.
so when you, well, I mean, I'll wait for Jeremy, when you get to the legal, if there's anything specific questions you have on a case or anything of that nature, we can always go into executive session.
Right.
I think we were just gonna speak generally about the change in the insurance coverage for the Article 7 days.
No bagel, nothing. No?
You sure?
Does anybody want half of this?
No.
Welcome, have a good day at school.
Bye, I hope you like lemon.
I know, I was thinking, I don't know.
They're very good, aren't they? Yeah, they're big old nectar.
Haven't poppy seed, I don't know, I might get drug tested again.
I didn't think about that.
Maybe what?
Drug tested again. It was twice in 2 months. I hadn't been for 3 years and then twice in 2 months.
You can blame it on the poppy seeds if you want, right?
It's on tape.
Wink, wink.
Give me a breathalyzer at the first one. It's random. They pick and then they randomly select who gets the breathalyzer. And I thought, well, there would be a real problem if I failed that at work at 9 a.m. in the morning.
We need to talk about something.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a real problem to kill it at any time during the day.
This is true.
That's a good point.
Alright, so what are we doing?
We gotta
We
get
closed up
Jeremy
quarantine.
back.
Yeah,
Don't
you
do
need
quorum.
Jeremy back
Where is
tomorrow.
he? Jeremy! Where is he?
He's talking to Jerry, but,
I'm sorry,
I
thank you.
don't.
Yeah, thank you guys, I
I'm not
appreciate
supposed to
it.
do
Come on, Jeremy, we're waiting for you.
Why are you waiting for me?
You're the quorum.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize she left, I apologize. Nick, I'm sorry. Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
My gift is in the mail. Thank you.
So I'll just,
I saved some pictures, by the way, from the.
before you get to Nick, I'll,
File on me.
He does actually, it's a little.
All right, let's go.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize I forgot that.
before we get to or as we start the legal budget, I'll just point out, and this is a tab for town council. Dean and Bean is keeping their retainer costs the same. So the only line that we've changed within the legal budget is the litigation line. We've increased from $50,000 to $75,000. The litigation line, and that's reflecting the fact that our insurance coverage on Article 78 has dropped from a $50,000 reimbursement to $25,000 reimbursement, so.
Is there any other way to farm that out, or we're stuck?
We're stuck.
You mean as far as coverage?
Right,
I mean, we hadn't had that before, so it was nice to have it when we did, and it's nice to have whatever we can get back from that, so.
But I'm saying there's no other options on that front, there's no one.
Not that I'm aware of.
No, RJ looked into it, I think that's
Yeah,
the coverage that's available.
Yeah, we were so thrilled he found it, you know?
yeah, that was definitely a benefit.
I was shocked to how wondering how they were staying in business offering it, but.
Who provides it?
One policy.
Okay.
Whatever the underlying company is,
I have no questions.
Nope. Well, hopefully we'll have less Article 78 next year anyway, they're done with the, I would assume they're done with the sunshine, with the one that's pending. And,
Right. That's correct, there's been three, two have been, support of the board's decisions, and then there's a third one that's,
Right,
being litigated.
so I don't
I
anticipate
don't
any
anticipate
other,
a fourth one.
can you anticipate any other Article 78s coming down the line next year besides,
Perhaps. We'll discuss later.
Yeah.
oh yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I had a couple of things I
Yeah.
want to discuss for executive session too, but
Yeah, well, everybody's listening at first before.
I guess we can wait, it's not urgent now, I can wait till Tuesday.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry, I apologize that I didn't realize that you had to get out.
Yeah, no, we already scheduled a site visit for 11 o'clock with another agency, so.
Well, it's good, so then we moved it quickly, so now
Thank
we're,
you.
Okay.
thank you, Nicholas.
Thank you.
The things that were on in the file for Nick to give to him that were on your desk, yeah, so just before you leave.
Next is our decisions.
Thank you.
So I'll just, what I have noted, and I think
What's that?
Yeah.
different from years past, there really aren't a lot of decisions at this stage, but I'll list the couple. You know, the police, we reduced the vehicles from 5 to 3, I think that was responsible. I think the fact that their replacement schedule shows one next year, I think we certainly can push one off to the next year. They look like the fleet was sufficient, that they had enough cars to rotate the detail. That's my feeling, that's your decision.
Well, the chief this morning, as a matter of fact, and I forwarded the email to you, and I forwarded it to the town
About the
board.
signs, I didn't read the whole thing, but I saw
So he
it.
was
They
saying,
want the
I think
Ford pickup.
the Ford pickup, because you know, we need to, with all these all the severe weather we're having, and with trees coming down and roads closed, that brings a need for more signage to alert people that roads are closed, which means you need a bigger truck to carry them.
Well, what if we,
Perfect timing, so we
what
mentioned the
if we
pickup that's
gave them
available
a
at town
pickup?
hall, and I don't know why they keep glossing over that. Jill mentioned that in the budget meeting, she, with the department, she mentioned it again last night. They
What if
want
we
their own
gave
vehicle
them
to
that
park back
and-
there and call their own.
Rob, what if we gave them the pickup but took out a different car?
I mean, that,
But yeah, I didn't know that there was a
I mean,
pickup available. If there's a pickup available, there's no reason why they shouldn't use it. And maybe next year they'll get the other.
so there's a pickup that's available as part of the town hall fleet that would be typically used between 8:40 and 4:40 when the town hall is here, and not even every day. Jill sits there and watches it. It's available all weekend, every weekend, and it's available.
Then I think temporarily that could be their fix.
Yeah, for the next, to hold them over for another year.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that
Just
that was
talking
available.
about the
Oh,
police
the
vehicles,
additional
and
car,
you
yeah.
said
Yeah.
based on
And if that's what they
Cheapsy
wanted, then we can hold off altogether on the vehicle.
Yeah, but next year maybe we could think about it, but this year,
Well, that's what I was saying, maybe
based on,
don't give them one
he got a
of these and
resident
give
email
them
last
pick
night.
up.
What page is that?
You know,
One
I
of
just
those
read it,
because
that-
they-
that
Right, that
they
there were no
had,
signs, yeah, we don't have signs, so.
And so the chief said, well, if they had a pickup truck, I know,
I'm happy to put a tow on that pickup truck for him so he can go do whatever, but he doesn't have enough signs, so what's the difference?
Well, he
Well, that's
also
another
wanted
issue.
a budget for more signs.
Well, listen, we can offer them, you say either get rid of one of your
Yeah.
new cruisers, is that what they call them,
Right.
or get the pickup truck, but if you wanna stick with the cruiser, then you use the pickup truck we
But
have.
literally, the pickup truck
Right.
was there, if they wanted it, they could have put whatever they wanted.
Yeah, I
No, but
think
if
that's
they want
fine
their
for
own
now.
pickup truck, then we get rid of one of the other cars they wanted, it's, you know.
This is, you know what, they're,
I don't know
they're
that the
getting one
price
new
is
one next
actually
year.
Some
cheaper
people
than
stick
some of
ahead
the
of
other
them
ones.
and make
right,
a
so
sign
we
on
said
it.
we'll give them one, you could even give them, so the way that I budget, you know, we've got an amount for this year. If you gave them 3 next year, it would be the same budget hole that it was this year, it wouldn't have any negative
Right.
effect on the budget
Right,
next
let
year,
them
cause
figure out
we've
which
already, right, so,
That's their call.
I mean,
Right.
again, that's your
Okay,
call,
so
but
that depends
Yeah,
which
I'm
three they
okay with
want.
that, they can figure out which 3,
And it would make sense not to do the pickup truck since they have one available.
right.
Yeah, and again, happy to put a hitch on it, I should have mentioned it to Jerry when he was here.
I will come up with some kind of I guess cost benefit for the lawn cutting proposal. I really don't think there's I think bringing that in-house is kind of a no-brainer, I mean, how I wanted to see that, I'll certainly come up with that, but I think, you know, when you're talking $125,000 a year and then you don't have the employee for the rest of the year, it just, to me, I mean, so you're gonna amortize $140,000 of equipment over 5 years, and you're still gonna probably come out less than $125,000, but I'll do that number.
But I think it makes sense to maybe consider definitely bringing the lawn cutting in-house, cause also the person can do, people can do other
Right.
tasks, which
Yep.
is very important for the appearance. It might make sense to contract out the snow clearing for a couple of reasons. I understand we could have the same issue we had with the lawn cutting, somebody comes in and lowballs us, I get that. But for liability reasons, it can make sense, cause you could put past the liability, I mean, liability is an issue with snow clearing.
No,
And you can pass the liability on to a third party, that's not a bad thing. And we don't have to buy the equipment, you don't have to worry about I mean, you have prevailing wages, but you don't have to worry about the retirement, all those issues.
Sure. Yeah, I think you would need Bart or Jerry to check surrounding municipalities and find people that have gone that route and to get it just a ballpark on what that would cost. I mean, he can give you a ballpark on what the equipment and what the people would cost, but it's hard to understand
I'll send
what
that
somebody
email.
would.
Yeah, it's
The-
To
the
my
other thing
fellow
we're
hiring all
the
this.
supervisors, we love getting emails, cause you know.
Yeah.
Are we gonna run into that same problem?
So we may, so just to bring up a topic that we had with the mechanics, and this was also actually Eric Nicolaisen brought it up several years ago because the DPW staff is clearing out that parking lot and I'm sorry, but the South Greeley parking lot behind the Bank of America, and it wasn't fast enough, I think, for Eric's liking, and he said, well, you know, we're being taxed for it because we do a transfer to the highway fund for that clearing from the parking district. And Eric said, well, why don't you go and contract out for that? And the issue at that time became that you're not able to replace a job that union members are doing with an outside contractor. And we also had a precedent several years ago where the prior town administrator wanted to outsource the mechanic shop. And we, in the research to that fell under
Cannot do
that
it.
same issue, that we couldn't replace a job being done by a union member with an outside contractor.
But we haven't started clearing the sidewalks here.
Well, you're talking about the new.
I'm talking about the new sidewalks.
The new.
The new, I'm
I'm
just,
talking about
yeah.
only the new sidewalk.
I understand,
Cause
but
that
it
was the
may be.
600,000 that was being thrown around.
So I mean, we
Well,
would.
it's more,
Equipment is gonna be
200,000
over a
equipment.
million.
Yeah,
every
well, that's
5
what I'm
years.
saying, so
Okay,
we're
I'm just-
talking about the new
Just
sidewalk.
alerting
those
you
are
to the
recurring
fact that there are
costs.
these contractual
Which
issues.
which is what you're
floating around.
saying is actually another incentive to actually try that route first.
Try which route
Yes.
first, sorry,
The
the,
contracting it,
contract,
because
yeah.
once we start doing it ourselves,
it's hard.
then we're gonna run into that issue.
Well, then you,
We're
yeah.
contracting at
then you
a
own the
service that
people.
we already did.
Right.
So now's the perfect time to try it.
So I
If it doesn't
think,
work, we do it that.
I think
Yes,
Jerry
that
needs to
does
get an
have
idea
value.
of what that would cost,
Yeah.
and I think the only way to do that is to find surrounding municipalities.
Alright, so I'll start working on that
That'd be
and
great.
see if I get a response from other towns.
It's costing just doing it right.
The liability is important though.
100%, the liability and just the damage, which they have to
And
use
these-
the right.
RJ
Get the
actually,
right equipment, and these guys are out
raised
also,
the
you know,
liability with this.
right 4 o'clock in the morning, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's not like us where you gotta drag somebody to bed.
Right.
That's what these guys are doing.
Mhm.
They live for this, they want the snow. They make their money, well, depending on
Well, it's
pricing.
their goal.
Contract.
It's right there, the contract.
Right. Okay.
Another thing that was brought to us today was not brought to us at all during the budget process was the Justice Court wanted to increase the conference and travel by $500 for the additional training. It's minimal, so
Yeah.
I don't think that's really an issue. And then we go back to the increase in the personnel for the DPW administration salary of $12,000. I think is
Well, are we gonna do that as a individual, or we'll do it collectively with the?
Maybe trying to get a traffic dedicated.
That we'd probably do individually, cause I think it's
I
more
always
time
have.
sensitive.
We had one, but the guy left.
You mean
And
improving that,
we
or?
have an issue now with that, right?
Well, it would
Yeah,
be,
it's
I
made
need
us-
to,
took
I
like
need to
a
know
check.
what I'm gonna include in the
But we're
preliminary
gonna
budget,
we
so
should get it.
if we're changing that number and putting it in the preliminary budget,
Trying to
because
see
that
what
changes the
it
tax
is.
rate slightly, and
Because
things like that,
because I
so.
think that's part, I think that can be part of our negotiation of.
Oh,
The vehicles?
Yeah, absolutely. It's gonna take, 'cause it's
yeah, that
across the
should
office.
probably be sooner
I
rather than
think
later.
it's more
I
time
mean,
sensitive
decided to do
and
the,
it probably has to be done
Right.
sooner.
So I mean,
That-
in the
that's
past,
cool.
we included it in contingency, and as I mentioned, I
The
didn't this
keys
year,
are
so.
between community resource officer, which is similar, work with the schools.
Yeah.
And traffic.
Let's discuss this more, let's discuss it now, let's discuss it more,
So,
because I think there's ways to
you
get
will
it.
wanna bring that to them at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the only other decision, and maybe we can ask Jerry,
But you're right.
the incremental increases in the water rates, so.
Yeah, I think that's something we have to look at hard, and I don't, I'm not cavalier with raising rates, but if we know we have some big ticket items, we know it's coming, whether it's 6 million,
You're
2
correct,
million.
and Jerry's never opposed to increasing water rates, I will tell you that. He has come to us before, and this is in prior years when the fund balance was large and proposed increases, and we said, well, why? You're
You know, as we always discuss about education, I think people understand why we're doing things,
Yeah.
they may be frustrated, but you know,
And-
everyone realizes nothing stands still.
Sure, and the reason that we've, you know, I've continued to update the board, you know, at every opportunity about our fund balance and how we're appropriating it and where it's going, because I just wanna be crystal clear to everybody what's there and you know, the potential effects of appropriating it, and obviously, you know, it looks big, but in the scheme of things, when you look at how many projects are on the horizon, and, you know, this downtown project, we're finally seeing that. So for years, I kept saying, well, general fund's going up, it's going up, why don't we spend some, well, no, we have a plan for that, it just,
Right.
it didn't start yet. When it starts, we'll be drawing it down. So I just want everyone to, you know, keep in their head that, yeah, the fund balance is there, and it's not going to remain that high. But I do think there is some, incrementally, we do have to do something. We can't just, leave it stagnant. Jeremy's right, you can't react when the cost hits you
It's born
because
upon
it's,
you 100%.
because it's too late.
Right.
So if we can maybe, I will ask Jerry to provide an incremental, a proposal to show incrementally, so basically, you know, how many thousand cubic feet are we going through in a year, and you know, a $1, a $2, a $5 increase.
And when we raise that water rate, that also is shared by those who get water from us too, they're going to be paying more for that rate out.
No,
works.
because that's a separate contract,
Oh, it
and
is, okay.
so, right, so they pay, but they also pay, their rate goes up every year, because if you look in the water budget, the 8330 portion of the water budget, so it's separated into two prefixes, 8310 and 8330. The portion that's 8330, Pleasantville pays a share of that, based on their agreement with us. So, all of those costs, I think Pleasantville, and I'm not gonna be right on the exact amount, but it's in the 20s, maybe 28% of that total cost. So, and when you look at water revenue, and you see a Pleasantville fixed rate, there's two components of the Pleasantville water revenue. One is the fixed rate and one is the variable rate. It's on page 142 of the water budget. The Pleasantville fixed rate is their share of our expenses. So whether they take one drop of water from us or 10 million gallons, that fixed rate, that fixed component, that $598, $993,
Static.
they owe us.
Okay.
They're gonna pay that, so we know that's there. The variable rate is where,
Understood.
based on their consumption.
Understood.
So we are, as our expenses increase, their share of that revenue. You look, it was $551,908 in 2018, it's $598,993 next year, so it's about a $40,000 bump in that fixed rate.
Is there any way to bring, I mean, I know this is gonna sound like I'm talking about Sunshine, but I'm not, because Sunshine would be Alston's water. But is there any way to bring additional users onto our, bringing more revenue by getting additional users?
I don't think so, I mean, we,
Connecting to, more users onto our, public water system.
People want well water, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not talking about Alston,
I mean,
that's
that would have to be
water supply.
That cost is borne upon the person who wants to do it, or the municipality has to tap
Yeah,
it.
but outside people, we bring people from other towns that basically don't have water now, they charge a higher, we could charge
Like
a
in
higher
Mount
rate.
Kisco, Newcastle.
Yeah, exactly.
you know, Jerry would have to speak to that,
Yeah,
I'm
we
not
still
sure.
haven't renegotiated Mount Pleasant, INO. That's been
Right.
expired
So
for
we
a couple
do
years
sell
now.
water to Mount Pleasant, IBM.
So the old contract is
currently.
sort of the Triborough, is that a similar concept?
Yeah,
It
well,
keeps
you know,
on-
like, I don't think by law we're allowed to just cut them off when we don't renegotiate an IMA.
Well, I wouldn't
but
ask to do that,
they've been,
Similarly, Northern Fire Protection District.
yeah, reluctant to,
We can discuss, this is more of an internal,
So, I mean, we talked, I think when you were away, was also looking for an outside contractor to do the sidewalk clearing.
and explain,
But let me ask you, I was gonna send an email to the other supervisors, but but
can't help it.
how I'm
My
just
Joe
curious.
Shapiro.
I don't want them to chop my head off in a response, so, you know, basically we're looking for an outside contractor to clear public sidewalks.
right, we
Then our
wanna know,
downtown-
do any of them have?
Yeah, in our downtown, but they're gonna say, well, why wouldn't the merchants do it, something like that, like why would you be doing it
Just
for
asking
private
whether or
landowners?
not,
We're
whether,
just trying to get information.
yeah,
Do we need a, I mean, in order to do that, wouldn't we need some sort of
Sidewalk district.
improvement, right, there's
Yeah.
some sort
Yeah.
of, right, so basically I just
right,
wanna
we have,
Yeah.
right, so we're
Thinking
expanding
of incorporating our
the-
sidewalk
yeah,
district
we're,
and,
yeah, we're sort of
maintaining
expanding the
side- I just don't wanna hear any-
parameters of our parking
getting,
district,
you know.
so.
Yep.
Oh, you're doing that?
Just asking, do they, you know, anyone have?
And the issue that was brought up was that once these people come on as
Scared the
full-time
other
employees, if it doesn't go the
Exactly.
right way or whatever, now
I
we're
don't want a
stuck
mayor
with
to attack me,
employees.
I don't care if it's supervisor.
Pensions, we're now, so maybe this is the time to try to see if we can do an outside service before we make that investment.
I was surprised to hear him say
Liability,
that he
too.
was open to that. I thought they.
I would assume he'd be open because if he can get more bodies, more people, that's,
Because
Great for him.
it is such
It's a
a
huge
labor intensive
nut.
nightmare for him. Guys get
but
hurt.
five
they're hurt
people who are summer, fall, we have access to 5 more people.
I know.
He tends
Yeah.
to,
You would of course want that.
He tends to, but look what happened, look at the composting thing, sometimes he tends to
Over.
give us the worst possible.
Well, he does.
Yeah.
He always does that, yeah.
Right.
But it's one of the reasons why there's fund balance in water and not zero,
Absolutely,
because
right.
that's what he does,
Right.
because he errs on the side of caution as opposed to, more often than not, you know, I've been doing this job for 8 years, and more often than not, his estimates are more accurate than anybody else in the building. You know, when, heck, to a former employee that used to give me an estimate and I'd add 20% on top of it every time he told me something, because it was never what he said, so.
Right.
What is our total expense for the MTA tax in totality for a municipality in any way, shape or form?
Mean to maintain the,
No, just the MTA tax is imposed upon, you know,
every town,
yeah,
even the ones that
exactly,
don't have a
It's
train
just
station.
I saw them broken out in a couple of different spots, I think, but what is our
It's
total
not huge, 43,000
in entire capacity?
total, yeah,
There are towns that pay that don't even have a train station,
yes.
cause they're
What is that? And-
the theory is
Wasn't
that
there
residents benefit
litigation
from
years
the
ago,
train.
weren't they sued and didn't they lose?
I don't, no, well, and the
That's a big issue
library
for
was,
North
is
Salem.
no longer, part of the libraries,
Burns,
Yeah, part of it.
kills them.
no, they are, the library pays its own MTA tax too.
I would imagine, I think all
The school
employers pay
district
it,
pays its
I
own
don't think
MTA
it's,
tax.
yeah, I don't think it's restrictive to even municipalities, don't all employers
Right.
have to pay the
Yes, but I'm
tax?
just curious what we are as a
that's different,
taxpayer, yeah, but I'm not,
Yeah,
I'm just curious what support.
sure. Yeah, our cost next year will be 43,000 based on the payroll that I have. It's like 0.34% of payroll.
But you're talking about something different. You're not talking about maintaining the platform.
No, I'm talking about the
no.
MTA
Right.
tax,
No,
as
there's a
opposed to the
payroll
state,
tax.
yes, that was passed by the legislature years
Yeah,
ago.
right. Okay, so that's it for the budget for now? I mean, that's it.
And for the record, I do oppose your request to raise your salary to $100,000, I just wanted to make sure that the record was clear that I'm not in support.
It's hysterical.
Sorry, Rob, I tried to get it in there for you.
Wow, he threw me under the bus.
We thought we'd sneak that under the radar. So,
Fleischer, stop recording. Oh wait, we're recording anyway.
yeah.
I'm looking at emails, I'm sorry. People yelling at me, see, there's no good.
Yeah, welcome, you said you wanted to do this.
There's good news. What is
Alright, so thank you, so what's our, we're done for now?
Yeah, so let's do the, first, we're gonna go to a work session.
Thank you, Rob.
Oh, I forgot, even one meeting after this.
So we're only 45 minutes behind schedule.
Yeah. Well, that's what I wasn't going anywhere.
Luckily, none of us have full time. So, alright, welcome to our work session of Wednesday, October 3rd, 2018. First item, this is hopefully gonna be a quick agenda. I'm not trying to give you a hint, but we do wanna have, that's true. We do wanna have a quick work session. So, the first item on our agenda is the Airport Advisory Committee request. So why don't you give us a little background about that?
I would not label this an airport advisory committee request, I would label this as an item that I put on there as our representative to the AAD. I have not had the ability.
So explain what you're requesting, what your.
Okay, so,
Well, is he gonna be here?
Yeah,
no.
he had to go to a site meeting.
So, two issues came up in the past week. There's kind of evidence of the nonstop fire drill that is dealing with kind of the county and the airport. If you remember back on June 22nd, we sent the county a letter, asked it to be named a party in interest to any and all kind of things that have to do with permits, you know, the whole gamut.
And then they released the RFP, that's what we're talking about?
That's the second part. But it turns out that there was a permit, I guess, issued, that the county applied for in connection to Millionaire Construction. And Millionaire wants to, I forwarded this to you guys as well, wants to basically, I think it was double their space at the airport. Some people would say that's expansion, other people say, well, if you're not changing the amount of runways, it's not expansion. In my world, you build extra capacity, people fill that capacity, they market it out to the world, come here, don't go to Teterboro, we'll give you the best service, that's more capacity. So that permit was granted by New York State, they filed for it on June 20th.
What kind of permit is this?
This was I think a freshwater wetlands permit.
Okay.
And so there, in the package that I sent you was reference to that permit and 3 other permits. The 3 other permits they'd gotten kind of earlier. This was the last of those permits. It just, you know, was issued on September 20th. We didn't even know any of this was going on, which is disappointing. It's very difficult to really do an effective job if, as we requested before on June 22nd, given they're not giving us information.
They didn't give you the airport advisory board members. I mean, I know they
Or
didn't
the
give it to
town.
us. No, I
Right.
get that, but they didn't give it to you as
The AAD
AAD
is
members?
getting very, very little in advance. But the town too, and one of the reasons why we suggested, that the committee at that time suggested you guys write this letter so we don't get surprised all the time. And then have these Chinese fire drill kind of issues. And this is an example of it happened. And I think it's important to reach out and put in the context of what's happening aside for a second, we need to be noticed on all these actions.
What are you doing on the airport advisory board about this?
The Airport Advisory Board, we just started discussing it at like 10:45 on Wednesday night, and we started to go through a number of resolutions, including discussing this, and I think there were a number of people from the county who were very upset that we started discussing it. Basically, some of the, we've asked for a lot of information. We've asked, I don't consider it very, things like financial statements, things like copies of the leases that the airport has obligations under and their obligations to the county. Stuff that I would consider real blocking and tackling kind of due diligence items if you're gonna do your job effectively to know what's going on at the airport. In the context of some of those requests, you know, people that have said to us, you know, we're gonna make ourselves irrelevant if we're so hard to work with.
Who's?
I'm not gonna mention the name.
But that's been specifically.
That was specifically said, yeah, that we're in danger of making ourselves irrelevant.
Okay, did you, I'm sorry, did you make these requests in writing?
Yes, I forwarded to you all the resolutions that we sent down to the county.
Okay, and who specifically in
Well,
the
you
county?
forwarded to the airport advisory board.
And you guys
The
are
Newcastle, right, exactly, and I didn't send it to the town board because the town board is part of that distribution list.
Right.
When it's email
That's
sent
what
to
you told me.
airport@mynewcastle.org, the town board at MyNewcastle is one of the recipients. And all that stuff was forwarded to airport@mynewcastle.org.
Yes.
Right.
This is all, my assumption is that the airport advisory board, I don't know what's behind it, is that it hits everybody's on the committee and it hits the town board.
It does, I checked, because I was looking whether I needed to forward it to the town board, and I looked at the recipient list, and the town board is on it.
So that's true, and it would be incredibly helpful if it's something that the town board is meant to be reviewing as opposed to something that the airport advisory committee is meant to be reviewing, for that
Okay.
to be highlighted clear
Okay, well,
to us, that it's not your internal workings,
Right.
that it's something that.
Right, that's a different issue, right?
But right, you know, and I can double get, you don't get double, so I don't even get it at all, because I guess I'm sending it.
No, it's just in the
But,
text and the email, you don't double it.
Well, the point is, if you want us, if it's something we need to review for like purposes of meeting, it would have been good to highlight it. I could have done the same thing, but I didn't, but that's the point.
So, but I believe all you've had, I've tried to kind of make sure everybody's aware what's happening with the resolutions. And it's just, you know, it's going back to the process aside, to do this job effectively at the county level, I think we need information. And this is an example of information, it just popped up out of nowhere, okay? The only reason why we found out about the people who are on the advisory board found out about this particular permit was because under a separate FOIL, we're foiling for information, which seems kind of silly, the fact that the airport advisory board has a FOIL for county information related to the airport. You wouldn't think that it's not a good use of anybody's resources.
Well, at a minimum, I mean, Latimer sat here talking about how he wanted to share and be partners and the good neighbor policy, and
I don't
he's
want to throw
not
anybody
following
under the
that,
bus.
and clearly we need to at least, at a minimum, write a letter and say, hey, things are happening and we're not being
Right, so
apprised of this.
Here's an example of one thing that, you know, and I don't know what else. Look, when I look back at the history of our town, okay, a lot of the things that happened that didn't please me were because they happened and I didn't know they were happening, okay? Once again, permits got applied, people were brought in, RFPs.
So again, I don't need to spend time officially,
So we need to know, and going back to the letter that we wrote as a town, everything that happens, they didn't acknowledge, I guess, they deemed us a party in interest, and I don't know what the legal definition of our right to assert that is. Okay, I would have thought, you know, that if we asked for it, maybe they're not gonna treat us that way. I'm not aware that Rybrook, who's issued a similar letter, had noticed either. So there's that issue of the fact that I don't know what I don't know now, and that concerns me. It concerns me that this happened, it sets the standard for, it sets a little bit of pushing forward the fact that they're agreeing to this permit for new construction. What I've heard from a couple people at the meeting were saying that the county really isn't really on board with that they had to issue this kind of group permit application because there was some stormwater work that wasn't properly applied for as part of the first thing, the building that's already there. Once again, you're trying to pick this stuff up bits and pieces as opposed to being proactive and briefing us. We're just picking it up kind of on the fly, which is a really inefficient way to do things.
So what do you think we as a town board should do?
Well, I'm gonna speak with my AAB hat, because the people on the airport advisory committee were very disturbed.
Okay, I'm sorry, can I just get a clarification? When you say airport advisory committee, are you talking about our town
You or the
committee,
county?
or we're talking about the committee that you were appointed to as part of the county?
The AAB is the county,
AAB is the county, sorry, okay.
committee is local, the board is the county.
County,
It
so
does
when you
get
say
confused.
that
He
the
says
committee,
committee
you're
means
talking
us.
about our
And
local
right,
committee.
I'm saying that, in
Yes.
various conversations with members of the committee,
Yes, Newcastle.
okay?
Newcastle.
Newcastle committee, okay? There's a lot of people who are upset there based on the emails that I forwarded,
Okay.
to.
So what is the committee then?
What,
Okay.
back to Lisa's question, what do we need
Okay,
to
so,
do?
but I haven't had a chance to confirm with them to get their recommendations. I'm not gonna speak on their behalf.
What's
Not
your
gonna-
recommendation?
What's your recommendation?
Okay, what I'm saying
On
is,
behalf of the committee. Sorry.
as a representative of the
What-
board.
Just go ahead,
what's
I'm
your
kidding.
recommendation?
We need to make sure, there can't be things that slip through the cracks, that we're getting everything, okay? Everything that's applied for, everything that.
We understand the reason, what are you asking us to do?
Okay, you need to reach out and reiterate that again.
So letter?
To Latimer, to Kaplowitz, to
Whoever you think the
the board itself.
But
Black
as a
Dog-
member of
Spear,
the
and she's meant
board,
to be the,
yeah, but as a member of the board, have you asked in your capacity as a member of the board?
Yes, to get everything, we want
That there
everything.
is, not we, you, the town of Newcastle, as opposed to this committee. The town of Newcastle, through you, now sits on this committee board.
Right, you're the Newcastle
Board.
representative on the
Right, so what
board.
I can-
Have we put in have you put in a request on behalf of Newcastle to please review or receive copies of everything that is currently pending
Right.
about this?
I think, not using those words, the words that we used were in the resolution that I forwarded. We've asked for copies of everything that's forwarded to any kind of agency. If you send something to the FAA, copies.
So my suggestion, they're not mutually exclusive, but my suggestion is that you as a sitting board member,
Right.
not as a city committee person, but as a sitting board member, say, I represent Newcastle, I need this information in real time, I can't wait till after the
But it
fact, whatever it
doesn't
may
hurt
be.
to have that backed up
Make
by
that
a letter
request.
from the
Right,
board.
yeah,
we
but
did-
they're not mutually exclusive, I just said, yes, you put in your request in that capacity,
And we
put in our request
and that's been
mirroring that.
And that's been done. The resolution does that.
Yeah, but the resolution's from the committee, and I
No,
think that the
you
board
as a-
There's
should
a
get.
resolution is from the board. Everybody on the board wants this.
I know.
I'm not individual.
You could basically write a letter, would create a letterhead for you, where basically it says, Rob Fleischer, who's Newcastle's appointment to the Airport
I
Advisory
think we write it on
Board.
town board stationery.
And basically, right, okay, and then basically say that, as a representative of Newcastle sitting on this AARB board, this is the type of
And we should mirror that,
documents
I
that
think
we
we
want.
should mirror that also.
Right,
Yeah, I do
because
too.
like I
We should
said,
mirror it.
I think what they're getting for us, because my position is probably what you think is not by far the most extreme on the board. Okay, there are a lot of people who.
I don't believe it, but go ahead.
So, I can put that in writing again. I think, look,
Letterhead, our town letterhead.
Right, I think maybe
I'm
Nick
happy to-
can draft
I'm
something.
happy to,
Yes.
I think
We'll mirror it.
the town board needs to write that.
Yes, but I think we both should.
So I'm
need to, I agree
just
with
making sure we're okay,
Yeah.
so I'm happy to write my own letter, the town board needs to write a letter. In terms of the specific action, I think, once again, because we're doing this Chinese fire drill, I think the perspective of different members who are on the.
Culturally sensitive term, but.
I know, I'm sorry, we're running this fire drill, okay, so they named it when we were kids, we got out of the car and ran around, sorry. But in either case, so we don't operate in this manner, because it's a really inefficient manner, a sloppy manner to operate in, and I end up in here on 11 o'clock on a weekday morning talking to you, wasting your time, is we need to get this information on time. And so that's one issue. The other issue is, on this specific application, I think the members who I've spoken to on the Airport Advisory Board believe that, while I think there was an initial desire to engage the county and potentially have with a many-membered or multiple jurisdiction, kind of Article 78 on this particular
And you want us
permit
to, you want us to
application.
fund it.
Right, they wanted potentially to get funding from different sources. I think right now we're
What was the
deciding
dollar-
not to do that.
Oh, you're not doing that, okay.
Okay.
So I'm
Okay,
pulling
Nick
that.
did tell me that there's a 4-month statute of limitations for that Article 78. So that it didn't need to be done immediately, and his feeling was is that if the board, if it was our desire to go that route, then certainly there would be strength in numbers, and we should try to.
Right, and
Do you think there was any value in it? Do we think it was just an exercise of futility?
He really, he didn't opine on that, but he did say to me that if we wanted to go forward, that certainly having all members, all interested, and involved municipalities would be the way to go.
Right.
It can't, it should not just be us.
No, I think that's.
Right, and look, I will say that, getting the municipalities all together is not easy,
Yeah, but we've done it on, we just had an instance where there's, gonna be action on state and local tax legislation, things like that, all the municipalities join together.
But it's more clear that everybody's kind of getting impacted there.
I understand, but for the communities that are in fact impacted, that either sit on this AAB, the county committee, or, surrounding, certainly should be part and parcel to the Article 78, if that's the, if it turns out we're not going that way, that's absolutely fine, but.
Right, so right now, I think that, given the fact that the county is saying, I think you should also reach out to the county, because I think as many times as the county says, and is forced to repeat themselves, that they have no intent of approving this, because they believe it's kind of left over, the working theory is that it's left over kind of from the previous administration, some sort of promise that Millionaire believes is implicit in their lease.
Right.
But if they make that representation to you, I think that also, the more people they're forced to make that representation to, I think the better. I think it makes it more difficult for them to go turn around and do something there. Because it's not hard to see, given how aggressive Millionaire's been, that at some point in time, it would not surprise me if there's some litigation between the county and Millionaire. Given how quickly they're trying to grow their presence there, it just really wouldn't surprise me at all. And we're not gonna want the county to fold on that. So the more accountable they are, because they've said these things and made these promises, I think the better off we are. And then, the other issue that I was here on this time was this RFP.
Right.
And this too is, I'm not aware that anybody got the RFP before. I think when I went to the meeting yesterday morning at the airport, the planning board meeting, she said we were the first ones to get it. And they wanted feedback by October 12th. Well, besides the fact that the content of the RFP seems to be a bit tone deaf to what's been happening in the county since
Right.
over the past 8 months, and people
Right.
found incredibly disappointing. It's a real, that process where here's a copy of it, I need comments back by October 12th, but there's no give and take there.
Is our local committee preparing a response on behalf of the town of
Uh,
Newcastle to the RFP?
I'm trying to organize them to do that. There are some people, I think, who were so outraged by the content.
Well, then we should move past the outrage and
we
move
got-
towards action.
I understand that, okay?
It seemed to me, I liked the comments that Susan made over email. It seemed to me that RFP would have been the perfect place to insert the work that we would like the county to do with regard to hiring an analyst to review the data to be able to provide the sort of concrete analysis that Peter Hirsch was talking about, so.
You can follow up on that.
I think that would be.
And those are the types of things, that should be in there. There are lots of other things that should be in there. And it's really almost, it has kind of a pro-growth almost, pro-efficiency to me in airport terms. If you move more planes through quicker, that kind of equals.
Yeah, but let's not read between the lines. I don't think growth is necessarily. I don't think efficiency is necessarily growth, and I don't think
Well, then why do we need to be
operational
more,
efficiency.
why do we, I'm not sure
Right,
we're.
well, look,
okay.
if time is of the essence, we have to get them a response by October 12th.
Right.
So I think you have to pick a day that the committee is meeting. If people can't come, they can't come. Susan should be there though, because Susan Comey, because she had very
She had
good
comments.
comments.
Do it by email
And-
also, circulate
Or
something.
do it by email, but you have to get together and the committee has to give us comments so we can incorporate them into a response.
Right,
And you
now,
should
Because
respond.
otherwise, the deadline is gonna pass and we will have not responded.
Right, and like.
that's the
and-
worst thing that can happen.
And, but this goes back to too, and I think it's worth mentioning in the same letter, that, you know, we all knew what, we don't even know what the timeline is for the the new master plan. We asked, we didn't get an answer. But for something this important, the scoping document for who you're gonna hire, to give everybody in the world, you know, this.
You know
Whatever
what,
may be, just
that
put it
should be
right-
the
You
first
know,
line
that
on
should
your
be-
letter and then
yeah,
respond.
put it all in the
Put it
letter.
right in.
I mean,
And then, well, again, we should be mirroring what you're saying. And make sure, and I'm sure you know this, don't send it until we've all,
Looked at it, which is
Looked
why
at it.
I would
Right,
really
'cause
like it to
the
be.
board needs to sign off on it.
Yes, the board's gonna be here on the 9th again, so it would really be great if we could
Before
have a
then.
draft of that letter by the 9th, because
Yeah,
we need
before,
an
so we
opportunity
can
to be
discuss it
able
on the
to
9th.
mirror it or, you know,
Or
confirm
just
it
sign
or just,
on to
yeah,
it
sign
and
on to it.
then get it to them in
And it would be
time.
great if it was,
Yeah,
you know,
it-
included in the
it-
public packet so
right,
that we
it-
could,
And then
forward.
certainly, the goal is here is to get comments to you guys and to let you know what we're gonna say. But I'm still working on a mirror concept, you know, with the airport advisory board, and we don't have any meetings scheduled.
Okay,
And-
but let's worry about the town right now and what we can do in our response that has to be made.
But, you know, once it, in the same issue, I think, you know, as part of this other same letter, I think,
fine, put it in,
right.
put it in.
yeah,
But
I don't know,
they-
I don't
it's-
know.
it's
I think
one-
we
it's
need
one
more
thing for-
time.
No, put what's,
No, no, I
we're
think
we're
it's
gonna
not
review it
saying-
anyway, we're gonna
yeah.
review it anyway, we're gonna pick and choose and
But-
figure it
but
out.
I'll-
No, I know we're gonna review
If you
it.
gave
I
people
just-
here, you know, if we had one master plan scoping session, and imagine our master plan scoping session being done in a 10-day period.
We're on the same page, but I guess for sake of efficiency, just,
and we should put
get
all
it to
those
us.
objections in and then give them the
Yes.
comments.
and then even in your capacity as a board member, as opposed to a committee member, you should send an email to the board and say, even though we have a meeting coming up, we need to respond, here's my proposed response.
The board has voiced a desire to have more meetings.
Whatever it may be, if you have a deadline,
I just want to keep you guys.
Right, if you have a deadline and no meetings are scheduled,
Yeah,
send them,
but
this is what our
unfortunately, on your
response is gonna be,
shoulders,
please
well, not-
sign on to
And
it.
the board should have done an emergency meeting so that they
Right.
would have a meeting
It-
before.
It's tough to get people all.
You know
but
what?
at least you're making the effort and putting it
Do
out
it by
there.
email, just do it by email, circulate it. Still public,
Alright, so get us
and use Comey's
what
thing
you
as a
want us
start.
to say.
Yes.
Yeah, she had a good email.
I think they're.
Yeah.
And incorporate all the
But,
other,
you know,
I mean, there were
you
good
know,
comments from a lot of people.
I don't know what individual emails you get. Nothing's really changed in the past, you know, since the town hall, since the public meetings,
No, we haven't gotten much as a board
right, but
from
you
the
know,
county on the
Gotten
airport.
anything.
Yeah, I don't think we've gotten anything.
But, you know, there's a lot of frustration that, you know, nothing's changing. We haven't seen any kind of, no noise
Well, that's
abatement
what I'm
activities.
saying, and
you know.
in some respect, we should call it out on it a little bit and say, hey, this is a big deal, and you said you were gonna involve us, and we've received zero correspondence from you.
Okay, I mean,
All right,
what is-
I think we know what we have to do. All right,
Thank you,
Rob,
Rob.
thank you. Soil testing change orders.
Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Thank you. So,
and it is reimbursable?
it may or may not be, so, depending upon what the soil test result find. If we know that some of the soil tests have revealed benzene, which is a
Gasoline.
byproduct, yeah, it's associated with gasoline. And if we can associate it with a spill, and we've called in a number of spills between the Shell station and the Verizon building. So if the disposal is associated with one of those, then we can submit to the state to be reimbursed. But one of the things we did is that we part of the reason why our costs were greater is because we were trying to do a rush job, if you recall, because we had to segregate the piles, and we wanted to be very careful about where we were keeping them while we were waiting for the test results to come back. ELQ was like, we don't have any more room, we can't segregate them, they want to lump them all together, and I'm like, we're not lumping them together, then you cross-contaminate the piles. So we paid for rush analysis so that we could quickly get evaluations and then get the soil piles disposed of.
Rush still being proper procedure, rush just
No,
not-
absolutely, yeah, no, just that we paid a premium for an expedited test result. So we know
Expedited.
currently that we have $17,301 of current invoices. Bob Cioli is suggesting that we revise the amount to not only include the 17, but add another 15. We believe it's going to be more than what we need, but we don't wanna have to come back to the board. And so we would like to raise the budget change order from the original 8760 to 32.5.
But I certainly, it is what it is, it has to be done, but at the same time, I think this gives credence to what Hala was saying, you need to have a better understanding collectively, because we have set aside money, contingency that on its face seems to be gobbled up real quickly, so we
No,
really need to have
it's
a
definitely, yeah,
collective.
and I have to tell you that.
But hopefully some of this
holistic
is
understanding.
reimbursable,
It's reimbursable and.
Hope, but we can't rely on it.
Right, but the point is that these. Our unknowns are below ground.
Right.
And
Once
we're,
we
we,
come above
with
ground.
any luck at all, we are about to end that portion of our project.
It is, I think it has to be done, and we need, so,
Okay, that's soil testing. Discover Chappaqua, Rob, you wanna talk about that and the change?
Yeah, basically, so Ivy, you were involved in this too, and we did mention this at one point. This is basically a website that, you know, it's part of the mitigation. We have a couple of people working on this website that with the chamber. And you know, the goal is the chamber's website's a little bit, you know, dry, it's more of like a directory. So the goal was to sort of create a website, you know, like Cold Springs has, and you know, a little more Cold Spring. Make it a little more touristy, attract people, basically highlight what we have, show off our new streetscape. And have a big ribbon cutting party, street party, block party, whatever you wanna call it. So this is the first invoice they're sending, and
Where is it?
Like
Are they
Have they done anything?
Well,
Yeah,
there was
at
that- there
the
was
chamber
that-
meeting, she said she hasn't done a thing
no,
on
no,
it.
there was something in there, it was like for $5,000 or something, there was some
I thought it was
samples.
six.
I think, I thought it was an estimate that they
Yeah,
received.
yeah, I'm not sure, I'm not saying they're actually asking us to pay for it, they just want the okay to go ahead and do it.
Where is
I'm
it in the
sorry,
packet?
I shouldn't have said invoice.
Yeah, cause
Alright,
she
so
said
we
they
need to
haven't
pack.
done a thing.
It was
This is-
from Dana Burke, right?
I think we initially talked about that it could cost $10,000 for everything with the block party and everything, or at least allocate that much. This is what we're talking about, this is all part of the
yeah,
same
but
thing.
so what is, but why are we spending the money now, for what?
I think they need the approval to move forward.
But we don't have anything to approve.
Yeah, but we do.
Why, but we can't just approve a blanket sum for a
Well, what's
party
it-
and
yeah,
it's
they-
for?
she gave something, I thought it was, there was something. Check my emails as well.
Yeah.
It's not, it wasn't in the packet, I didn't see it.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, Lauren, can you,
We don't need, we could do it next week, I mean, it's not that, it's nothing urgent, but
Yeah, let's talk about it next week, cause I don't remember seeing it.
is Burke, B-U-R-K-E?
B-E-R-K.
I'm sorry, say
yeah,
again?
B-E-R-K.
Oh, that'll do it.
I can fund it too.
I have it too, I mean, I know I've seen an email on it.
Yeah.
But maybe it didn't go to the whole town board.
Downtown signage, yeah, this is only, I don't think it's good.
Let's just put it off for next week and just
Yeah,
circulate
we don't
it.
need to
Want me to
waste
resend it
time
to
on
you?
it right now.
Yeah, you got it. No.
I need to
No.
look at it,
Let's
I'm
just
gonna
recirculate it for
Okay,
next week,
thank you.
yeah.
it's a
Okay.
quick, easy, once we have it.
Alrighty, and then there's just a couple of administrative items that we'll just put on for next time. One's gonna be a budget transfer, general highway balance to pay for salt. We'd like to stock up this year as much as possible. And then there's gonna be 3 street opening permits.
Yep.
Okay, that will
I
do
move
for
to
next
approve the
time.
payment of claims amount of $960,549.65 listed on the summary pre-check writing report and detail voucher detail report, each prepared on October 2nd of this year. Checks will be issued and mailed to each claimant listed on Wednesday, October 3rd of this year.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move to adopt the following minutes of the town board, work session.
These are not right. This is
No, they are. They're very old.
2016.
Yes.
Well, I'm not gonna
You-
approve
you don't
minutes
need
when
to.
I was
December
on the
13th,
board.
16 for the board meeting, special meeting December 21st, 16, town board work session, June 26th is 17, town board meeting July 17th of 18, town board work session July 17th of 2018 as well.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
I abstain.
Okay, I just abstained 'cause she wasn't
so we don't have three then?
Okay.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, you do.
Yeah, you count as
Three of
well.
you.
Oh, yeah, it's true. Okay.
They're not
Okay.
counted home, but it counts here.
All right,
Been a long
can we
morning.
move to
True.
adjourn the meeting? Are we done?
I think so.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, this has
Should
been